to order with everyone present. First item on the agenda this morning, Amie Buckley, Riverview Center funding request. Come on up, Madam Chair.
I'm not Amie Buckley, but I'm here for Riverview. And thank you for helping me find the spot. I've been here a million times, but my coworker and I were supposed to do this together, and she's in Maaten. She got the courthouse on. So she's like, I don't see a little building.
Oh, then you're on.
Yes. Oh, she's like, I don't see your car. I'm like, I think we're in the same town. So it's me. And I'm Mindy. Mindy Myers. Amy's one of our supervisors, so. So you just want me to kind of give a brief.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you have the letter that was sent by review. Okay. So typically, instead of doing like, we've been around for this many years and all of that, you have that in the letter, you can look it up on the website, but I just talked about the specific things that we do in Winneshiek County and why that's helpful, right? So we provide all the sexual assault services for 6 counties up here and 8 in the southern counties below us. One of the funding offers us the ability to do is things that our grant funding just doesn't come to the level of what we need, right? So then there's these supplementary things that help us do that. So we provide advocacy and therapy. Those are the 2 things that we do. So the advocacy is really what we call the boots on the ground services. So they do all of like the immediate safety, response to the hospital, response to law enforcement, working with those teams to collaborate so everything goes better the next time. And then if there's like clothing needs, food needs, just like really basic safety planning, they do that, right? And then I'm actually the therapist in our office. And so I can do things that are not immediate need. Like when I meet with a client, they're not an immediate safety need. They're not an immediate food, clothing, shelter. So we can really kind of dig in and work on the trauma. And we're trained, all of the therapists, in a number of different ways. But have you heard of EMDR therapy? Yeah, okay. So it's one of the fastest ways to process trauma that exists. So we're all trained in that. And then just your basic cognitive behavioral talk therapy kinds of things that you'd be familiar with. We say that our age range is from 4 to 94. To work with people under the age of 4, you really have to have very specialized training and not really do anything else. And we do serve all of those populations. We've worked with people who have been assaulted in a nursing home setting. We've worked with people who've been assaulted in daycare. So all of the ages. So it's as much or as little as they want, and it's free of charge. So everybody has their own specific needs for being with us in advocacy and therapy, and it's not something that we ever charge for. I think in the letter it says how many Winneshiek County clients we served. And I wanted to point out that while it's 3,451 women, it's also 1,479 men, just in Winneshiek County. And a lot of times people are still under the belief that that just doesn't happen, as far as men being sexually assaulted. And that's men and boys and women and girls that are in there. The stats at this time are like 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be assaulted prior to the age of 18. And then after that, ongoing. We don't see those numbers change because we're in Winneshiek County. I know sometimes people kind of feel like we live in a bubble here where all of the things that would harm our children or harm our adults are somewhere else, right? It's such a supportive community and everybody really does rally to help each other. And that's absolutely true. And we see that in the kinds of donations that we get. There are volunteers that will answer our crisis line and go to hospital calls. We see that very, very much. But if you look at it per population across the US, Winneshiek County isn't any different. The numbers are the same. Every single year that we come talk to you, the numbers are the same. So do you have questions about how we reduce that funding?
Those are alarming numbers every time I hear them. I'd like to see them go down over time, and it's really disheartening to see them constant.
We would like to work ourselves out of the job, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Like to have to become unemployed because there's no one else to work for. but that's not reality. Our grant funders fund the advocacy 100%. They will not fund therapy in the state of Iowa because they don't feel like it's an emergent need, and the Iowa budget doesn't meet that. So everything that covers therapy in our county is provided in other ways. We have some pretty strong United Way backing, but we also have wonderful boards of supervisors that are in each county. So that does completely fund therapy. Other questions?
How many counties do you serve?
Riverview Center, 14. So all the way down to Cedar Rapids, and then it kind of makes a loop on that eastern corner.
And how many therapists are in there?
There's one therapist in each of the 4 offices in Iowa. And we have two counties in Illinois as well. They have additional therapists there that we don't have because the state does fund that. The grant funding will allow for that. So they have more than one in each office. Like I'm the only one for the 6 counties. And then one in Cedar Rapids, one in Dubuque, and one in Waterloo. So they obviously cover less like area geographically, but just as many people.
So Iowa will not, with the grant from Iowa, cover therapy for sexual assault victims of any age.
No. And partly in Iowa, because they do this a little differently than other states, is that Iowa funds sexual assault agencies, domestic violence agencies, and shelters. And it's from the Crime Victims Assistance Division, which is funded by restitution paid by violent offenders. So they want that money to funnel back into servicing victims or survivors, depending on the term that you want to use. And so that funding, that level amount, they say it just isn't enough. So they'd have to supplement it in some way with like another part of the budget, and that's just not been something that's happened. So maybe someday. Other states do see the value in it though, and they are funding it.
Important work.
So you're the only therapist for 6 counties.
And look at the numbers.
And we travel. We're not, I just sit in my office and schedule 8 appointments a day. Because the people that we serve oftentimes are lower socioeconomic status. They're leaving a relationship with no money. We have a pretty heavy immigrant population. Winneshiek County as well. And one of the advocates, the one that went to walk on today. So she is our bilingual advocate. So we will work together and then she can translate therapy as opposed to having like one of the children do it, or, you know, things that shouldn't happen, especially when you're talking about this difficult of a subject. Right. Shouldn't go through the family. But I'm also then able to reach teenagers. But as far as being out and about, I go to pretty much all of the schools that I can possibly get to, and that's all of the buildings here, including St. Ben's. Because we want to make it as easy as possible. And so we don't want to have to put an undue burden on the parents. Also, sometimes kids are open up a little bit more in a setting they're comfortable in than necessarily coming to my office. Although we have a gigantic play therapy room with every possible thing that you could use. So they also do like coming there. We go to the schools, we go to mental health centers. If people can't get to either of those places, we meet in like meeting rooms in a library, meeting rooms in a church. We're just very creative in finding space that meets their needs. So in that 6 counties, I'm always roaming around.
There's a lot of news about migrants coming across the border, women and children who have gone through a lot of the same issues that you're speaking of. Are you beginning to see that up here impact us in Winneshiek County?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working with 2 survivors right now in Winneshiek County that were labor trafficked. So, and then one of them was sexually assaulted. It's a male and female. One of them was sexually assaulted living in the place where they were labor trafficked from. So we do see it. And they live in Winneshiek County, and we have others too. We aren't just seeing like everything stays in Postville, right? So because there's more opportunity for jobs here, there's more opportunity for places to live. There's just more than there is there. And so people are venturing out of that area, which has been a good thing because I am seeing people able to crawl out of those social and economic, the area that they're living in. I'm seeing them able to improve and meet goals and, find places to live, things like that. We do have a housing program that helps to pay the first few months rent to get somebody in a place. So just kind of that helping hand until they've got that job. And the advocates will help them find jobs. It's just really, that's what I mean by boots on the ground. So if the need is a job, so we can get past needing the rental as well. And we focus on the job. Or we focus on talking with the landlord about how to make this happen. So it's a lot of teaching as well on their part. But yeah, we're seeing that. More often we see the trauma that happened in their country of origin. And it's pretty significant, and there's not a lot of law enforcement presence, and so there's nothing to really stop it. And so we do see that people are coming over being assaulted, but they're also, that's why they're leaving in some respects.
So it's all part of building that beloved community where we welcome with open arms. We need them for jobs. We need them for employment. I'm glad you guys are there to help them find that pathway.
Yes, agreed. I probably could talk about this for like hours, but then we don't have hours. So if you had like specific questions about the request or what we would do with it that I haven't covered.
Got a tough job.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have the consent agenda.
And the minutes, the VA monthly report, and the sheriff's quarterly report.
I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? None. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Committee report.
Got a minute?
We could start them.
We could start them. So safety committee met last week. We're getting closer to finishing our final edits on the safety manual for employees. And we've got Dan Marks and Sean Snyder giving us a updated bomb threat evacuation and active shooter section of that manual. So we're getting closer. Good work last week, and we'll have it ready pretty soon.
John has a good roughing bids for the roof work we need to do here. And it's go ahead. I told him to go ahead and get on the schedule for the work schedule so we can get it done. We got new shingles on the old jail building that we need to replace. And then we continue. We're not going to try to do the scupper situation. That's not going to work out well. We're going to continue to replace with a brand new roof drain up here and a new membrane on this building. That should set us well. But the other building over there is becoming more critical. So I'm glad to see that moving forward. So we'll have that in this coming spring, but we got to get on the work schedules or we won't get it done, as we all know.
Yeah. Is everyone planning on attending 6th County on Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, 9:45, next on the agenda, Josh Dansdill, Northeast Iowa RC&D with the Upper Iowa Watershed Alliance funding request. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thanks for taking a few minutes to speak with me this morning. This is the request letter here, and then I have a couple of maps on the
Lid
back.
on it, thank God.
Here in a moment. Yeah, so I'm Dr. Dansdill from Northeast Iowa RC&D. I am here talking about the Upper Iowa River Watershed Project that we're doing water sampling on the Upper Iowa River on 27 of the sub-watersheds found in the Upper Iowa River watershed. A little background on it. It started in 1999. It's a joint collaboration between state, county, and city and nonprofit officials. And we currently work with Fillmore County, SWCD, State of Iowa, DNR Fisheries, City of Freeport Water Department, and then also the RC&D to organize the sampling dates from May through November or October. And that's done once a month on the second Tuesday. We send the samples in off to the lab as soon as we get them the same day, and then the samples are run and the data is then sent and collected and then shared online for everybody to use. Since we've been able to collect the data since 1999, it is currently the longest running continuous data collection in the state of Iowa for one watershed. The information that is collected is then used for either grant writing or through the SWCD to the state or through federal funds to get it. It's actually brought in millions of dollars of funds from the state of Iowa to help reduce flood reduction or improve water quality through reduction of their nitrates. We have found that other folks have used it as well, from high school to Luther College to NICC, for people to write papers and write back for their work. We continuously try to reduce the cost or maintain the cost of the sampling, which is drastically increased every year. We have a great working relationship with CO, so our cost right now is still staying the same as it has been. So that would be the same as our request, which is the same as it has been in the past. And all the money that is requested just pays for the lab sample. Just to run that at the lab. All the rest is in-kind donation that everybody gives for their time. Samples.
Have you noticed any drastic changes in the water sampling forward?
This year was a little, I mean, we had a drought, so you saw some, it had like a dip in like some of the nitrate levels and other levels in the summer months there, but then once it got really, really low, actually then it brought it back up again. So it was just kind of an interesting year. Usually we do see drastic increases in ticks and numbers when we have like a rain event that happens, which we had one or two this year that kind of landed perfectly on that date. And you saw a spike again. It kind of does depend on the land cover. It does greatly depend on the land cover, looking at the map on the back. So all the data then put into the online database, and that's an interactive map. So you can click on one of the 12 different parameters that are on there, and then it kind of changes it by color to indicate the higher levels are in darker, the lighter colors are the lower numbers. But we can, yeah, the Upper Iowa River watershed in itself has kind of maintained some of its levels, and others in Iowa have they have seen a drastic increase. So, kudos to everybody that lives in our neck of the woods for doing a lot of projects and recover ground. We work with NRCS and SWCDs. So that's great. I know a lot of folks would probably like to see numbers drop and just kind of work on that. But when working on a large watershed like this, looking at the sub-watersheds, the approach that we take is just one snapshot of the whole sub-watershed. So it's not targeting any landowner, any person at all. It's just a look at the whole watershed and what's happening there. There's lots of people that live in the watershed. So it's just a way to just see what's going on without pinpointing in on anybody and just getting some numbers that people can use.
You said the darker colors are the higher nitrate levels.
Yep, and that map is the nitrate level. So of the 12 that are on there.
Is it normal for the nitrate level to actually be better down river than it is at the headwaters? I mean, that seems backwards to me, but I don't.
Right, and
I'm not
yeah. Since if you look at the map, this is just looking at the sub-watersheds, and if we were if you did pull the numbers for the whole watershed, it would be a darker color. So this is just looking at each individual ones, where we do pull at the mouth in Decorah and in Bluffton, just to get a snapshot of everything up on the river. So when I said 27 sub-watersheds, we also then pull 3 other times on the river to get the whole shot of the Upper Iowa River. So yeah, the numbers will be a little higher, but actually since it's diluted a little bit more down towards the end, then it kind of numbers a little bit, whereas at the top it's a little less water flow.
Soil type makes a big difference too on the.
Right, there's a lot of factors that go into it, so
Like we got a lot of heavy clay here, it's gonna hold it better. When you get west and the sandy soil, nothing holds it, it just leaches.
Mhm. Again,
It's
it's
hard.
great data to compare the
Yeah.
soil type
Yeah.
and the sub-watersheds and just seeing how it
Yeah.
affects everybody and how, what we can do and what.
If more people did no-till and cover crops would also help these numbers drop,
And, yeah,
because it just increases soil health.
yeah, soil health. I mean, anytime we improve soil health, we reduce that. And then these numbers are also taken into used to do flood reduction work. So like in
Yeah.
North Bear, the flood reduction structures and ponds and that nature, so.
How many people are out testing that in these locations?
So we have one for Fillmore, which Minnesota, which is grateful to help for the facility monitor, the Minnesota side. And then we have one from the RC&D, one from fisheries, another one for fisheries in Gutberg, and then city of Decorah Water Department. So we have 5 or 6.
Cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, a lot of ground all in one day. Gotta be shipped out by 2.
Anyone have any other questions for
Does the Turkey River watershed approach the same size as this or smaller?
So I feel
I know it's
older,
last
so
year.
I'm getting older now. So I'm like, so I helped 5 years ago with them to get theirs going. Theirs is it's a bigger watershed, and trying to get the same coordination down, it never really took off the same. So we had one person that was doing running and all over, and they were putting on, way more miles. And the system that we have now for this one, everybody's kind of worked from the edges, gets in the middle. Everybody's samples are coming at the same time, and everybody's pulling equal amount of share of samples. So it works out really well. Where before the Turkey was so big, so many samples, so many sub-watersheds, a lot of distance covered. And it just never organized the same way. So they have some, probably did that for 4 or 5 years. When they had a grant funding for that. And then once that went away, it really kind of hit or miss, and a couple people do it, which is, kudos to everybody that's been working on this, and, grateful for the grant funds to pay for the lab. That we've had this continuous amount of data since 1999. So that's nice to look back on.
Any other questions?
That's good. Thank you for your work.
Oh, but
Yeah,
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
come on, Bill.
thank you.
Any other committee reports?
Historic Mid Saturday, your is here also. We're moving forward and getting the last of their fundraising to start on the barn survey. That they're planning on doing. And that'll create another booklet like they've done before to report as much of that as possible. They started by talking about one large barn, 30 some feet by 50 some feet, moved in the about late 1850s to another farm on wheels with dead men and working lasts, windlass to be able to move that thing. It's pretty remarkable stories and so forth, and it should be a nice publication to see. And that barn still exists today.
On Locust Road. Interesting topic also came up with that, about the book of everything.
Yeah.
That exists somewhere.
In the clerk of court's office.
And that its condition is questionable, and what could be done about that as far as.
Yeah, we're working on the ARCA search that's did our historic records scanning and database. The next time they're in, they've got some records to coordinate with the recorder to add to the database, that we're going to try to get them to go and look at that book along with if there's other books similar in the clerk's office. I've talked with the clerk. It's they're technically, the clerk of court is the custodian of the records, and they didn't wish to relinquish the records to our department, but they would be willing to let us scan them and add them to our database. So
Can they scan those if they're in a book and get a decent copy, or they have to take them?
No,
book apart to do it.
no, all of our scanning was done in books. So. It's actually quite amazing how good the scans they get,
Yeah.
even without taking them apart. But yeah, that one is on the list for sure, and when we can get them to come and actually do it, we'll see if there are others in the clerk's office too.
So that one book is what, 1850?
Something like that. It's the one where we found the old, when we had the debate on the Horn Hollow house. That's what.
1856 is the, most of the maps are.
Yeah, and so that was where we found some of that information, and yeah, so that was like the book at the time. There wasn't a courthouse at the time, so I'm assuming whoever was recording those records carried that book around with them when they would go.
And our surveyor, of course, is still using that.
Still
book.
references it, yeah.
Do references on it.
Mhm.
After they're using that map, I mean, that's the map when they did the bluff, that was 1856 must be the year they
Did some mapping, yeah.
mapping or something, yeah.
So yes, we are working on that, getting that preserved. I'll give a report about Fatima. She's stuck in Algiers or wherever it is she's been to the embassy now. She was working with contacting them remotely and not getting where she wants. So she took a plane to the city where the embassy is and now is in that city. And over the weekend, she requested me to send another letter requiring them to expedite her approval to leave the country because they're dragging their feet and won't let her leave. So we don't have her back, but the messages I sent over the weekend said maybe in the next day or two, they could finish the processing her visa. Of course, they wanted extra money to expedite it and a letter from me. And so her employer in the US to make sure that it really was, anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah. So she's trying to get back, but it's not yet on her way.
I'm glad you're communicating with her.
I'm meeting with the representative from the first district of corrections tomorrow. They'll be here in Decoy. They're trying to visit all of the different counties. So if anyone, about what our needs are, and they're gonna say what their agenda is too, but so if anyone wants to have me communicate what they feel our needs are in corrections, I'm gonna try to contact Dan today and see what he's probably the most knowledgeable on what needs to be done. But I said, do you want to meet with anyone else? And they said, no, just you. So we'll see how that goes. I'll let you know.
I met up on the third floor with John in the area where they're meeting and counseling and where they requested us put the lock on the door and access, limit access, and removing a counter out of there to create room for a different desk and some other things. But they're because they get hostile family situations and so forth, what they're doing is the right thing. Glad that we're getting that done. They run probably as much or more of a risk in that office right there, perhaps, than we do in the judicial offices. Because custody issues can get a little heated, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I had a revolving loans fund meeting. And we were able to give a startup business, 50,000, which is an elevator area. Kind of rotates around the counties, so. It's actually a business that's been in existence for quite a while. So change ownership. So,
Policy board after the 6 county meeting too on Thursday, so I called her to see if she could back it up an hour, so she just called me now, so.
Rochelle? Or who are you talking about?
For the Upper Exploreland meeting.
Yeah. That's at 10:30. I've got a housing meeting the same morning that I have to miss because this is county meeting.
The Upper Explorer ones, that one, I thought if they could change it to two would be better, but we can still make it one. Yeah.
I had a conflict also with Northeast Iowa Workforce Development Board meeting at 10 o'clock on Thursday and
Everything hits on Thursday.
said I will not be able to attend. They had one last Thursday, but that was just basically all the providers doing updates and explaining their programs, which was very lengthy and not very fun.
New copy of that with the names updated. Do you think you can get it to them and have them?
Yeah.
Fine.
I'll get it.
All right, next on the agenda, Winneshiek County Fair Board, founding request. Morning, guys.
Morning, guys. Thank you for inviting us. So on behalf of the Fair Board, I appreciate you taking time out for us. Once again, we are here to ask for funding to help keep our fair and the fairgrounds going. I'll give you guys each a budget. If you want to pass them around, please.
Because your backs are to the audience, just
Oh.
project loudly too.
Oh.
No, you can keep your back, just to talk loud.
I'm fine.
You can
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Talk loud and nicely.
Yeah.
And that's,
Oh, thank you.
that's a copy from the state fair, what they, give every county the funds.
And we did get a letter from Ron too, that since he couldn't make it.
Yes, with,
Yeah.
winter livestock and, farming, we all know what can happen there. Yeah, and then, I had sent Ben a request, one request on what we wanted, whatever, so, you know. First of all, if you kind of look at our budget there, whatever, you can see that, we don't really make money, whatever, and stuff like that. We just basically runs through our hands and out to the next guy. And we're doing it for the whole county is what we're doing it for, not just for us. You gotta remember that we're nonprofit. Everything we make gets passed right back onto our county, whatever, stuff like that. So, you know, and then, one of the reasons we're asking for a little more than what we've been getting is, you look at the county averages, we're still asking for less than what the county averages are. I highlighted, the nearby counties, what they give in their attendance, whatever. So we're at 32,000 attendance and we're only asking for 25,000, whatever, which is under the average, and that's actually less than $1 a person that comes in. And this is just for the 1 week at the fair too. You know, is that attendance. We also got other events going on there throughout the year. Let's just say, take for example, the 4-H. They like during the fair, they got 586 livestock entries, 262 statics, 108 clothing and other stuff. So we are affecting a lot of people in the committee, whatever. There's 230 4-H members and 80 clovers, which are also benefiting us. And once again, this money's not just benefiting us. Everything we do is passing on to everybody else in our county is what we're trying to do. And they also use we let the 4-H, just for example, the 4-H, we let them use the buildings roughly 30 times this year for club meetings, fundraisers, awards ceremonies, weigh-ins, county fair, you know, during county fair, Clover Cafe, we let them use it for during the fair. They fundraise. The other, as you notice in our budget, we got a little commission income. The only income we get is from our nonprofits we let in our fair to make money for, once again, the county, like the Winneshiek Agus or cattlemen, dairy promoters and learners. They're all people in the county remaking money for their county. We take a small percentage from them guys just to pay for our electricity, you know, water and stuff like that and help maintain the buildings. And we want to keep that down. And we've been approached by outside vendors to come in. They'd give us a lot more commission, everything else. We can make money. Once again, we're trying to keep everything in Winneshiek County because that's what we're proud of here, you know, so, you know. And then we got a pretty good lineup of stuff coming to the fair again. You know, like the dog show is getting bigger every year and stuff like that. We're having to start our fair kind of on Sundays, kind of when it's kind of starting. It's from July 7th through the 13th. Sunday where you have a partial dog show, is that correct there,
Yep.
Gary?
Yep. they
You
start-
know, they start the dog show on Sunday and Monday. It's kind of getting to be a 2-day event with that, which is all local town kids doing that, whatever and stuff like, and they got that into a big thing. Monday night, we're trying to get just to give back to the county again and everybody again, kind of a free event. You know, just, we ain't got it all finalized, but we got something pretty well. We can't announce nothing, like I say, until everything's finalized on everybody's end, but we're trying to have a grandstand event where, so when the people are bringing their exhibits and stuff in, and the family come, they can sit there and view something else for free from us, you know. And then, we're gonna have buttons again this year like we did last year. We're having a 3-day one from Tuesday through Thursday, you know, which is $25 in advance and $30 a thing, you know. And then we're having for a full week, you can buy it for $50 for all 5 events, which will be Tuesday night will be the races, Wednesday night will be our rodeo, which rodeo's coming again, Gary?
Barnes ERCA rodeo, so
Okay.
it'd be a good rodeo.
Yep. And then we got the NTPA tractor pull, which they're requesting every year to come back because they love the, you know, amount of people we get and everything else. And then we can announce we got Joe Nichols for Friday night, music, whatever. Saturday night, I think we got the person pretty well locked in, but once again, contracts all state that you cannot say anything until everything's up there. So we're getting along pretty good with that stuff there, you know. And then we also can use some money like at a racetrack. As you notice, we cleaned up the boulevard a little bit because the trees and stuff was looking kind of tough. Our intent is put a new fence in there and maybe clean that, well, make it look a little nicer around there. And then hopefully to help support that too, we're gonna try selling sponsorships in the inside to cover the wall so the dirt stuff don't come to the road and stuff like that. So basically we're asking everybody for help, but it's getting harder to get all these businesses in town and the whole county to keep giving to everybody else. So, you know, with us asking you, we're helping everybody in Winneshiek County and we're kind of, you know, getting it from Winneshiek County too, you know. But other than that, is there any questions you guys got on what we're doing there or how we're doing it or why we're doing it?
How much were your fair buttons last year?
Same price, $25 and $50, you know, for the 5-day one.
How
We-
many do you sell?
We sell, right at, with our budget, we figure 4,000, we're hoping at 4,000. We had like 3,500, 3,800 last year of the $50 ones, and we had that's about 1,200 of about 1,000. I'd say about 1,000 of the 3-day ones for the $25, which that's where our budget at the 196 comes in with that. We sell a fair amount week of the fair, and we do get people from out of town, a lot of out of town people coming in because we sell it online with PayPal.
Yeah.
And there's people there's this one bunch from Wisconsin that comes every year now. They set their vacation when our fair is now because they're liking our entertainment here and the price to come in here. So we figure if we keep that at a lower price, you know, we can always raise it, but once again, it's hard to ask that.
You raised it a couple of years
We
ago.
raised it last year.
I heard
Last year we raised that. We raised it by $5 a button.
Yeah, man.
It may not seem like much for events we got there, which it really isn't. But if you only come to one night, it's expensive. If you come to 3 nights, it's really a bargain. And 5 nights is a darn good bargain, whatever. But once again, you take let's take a family of 4. Start buying 5 buttons.
$200.
Yeah. Will they come here and spend money to our other vendors like the cattlemen and the dairy promoters and stuff like that? And the 4-H, we want them to be able to spend money other places too. We don't want to take it all from them. We just want to break even at the end of the year. It's what we want to do. You know,
Says that investment in the new exhibit building down there paid off on your rental incomes as far as getting more use of it and so forth.
it's starting to increase more. We're getting more and more people there and people are starting to see it. You know, we still let our 4-H and other people use it first if they request it, because that was our original thing. And then we're trying to fill it in more now, but we are getting more and more business there. And we're not overly high priced on renting it, whatever, because once again, we don't want to outprice everything because we got to remember, everybody in this county helps support us there too. And you you want to help them, what you want.
No, that was a great investment because that was such an improvement on all of our exhibit space and everything else there at the fair.
Oh, thank you.
I don't understand how Howard County can do better than our fair, because I think our fair is better.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. See, they got, when they do their events, they got every night, you can buy a one night thing, which is a lot higher prices, anywhere between 50 and 30 bucks a night. So you can generate more money. We do not have the manpower or a good way to do a one night, thing. And plus, if we do the 5 night thing, we can budget it in a little better too and stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure how they do it better. Maybe it's supporters. Well, look at what the county gave them.
I noticed ours is listed 7,500, although for 23, we budgeted 18,000. So I didn't
Right.
know where that.
Let's have the same
75,
question.
Yeah.
What was
You
the,
said that we gave you 7,500, but last year we gave you more than that last year.
15 last.
was it,
Yeah.
what was that on?
Oh, they haven't gotten for the current year yet. So you're probably looking back. This is from the year before, but even that was more than that. So
Because it was,
it was
did you get that,
7,500.
10,000 from that,
10 and 8.
Well, it was 7,500 to both,
75.
75 for the grounds and 75 for the fair, yeah.
So
Grounds and buildings was
23.
75, and then the Fair Association was
Did
75,
we
so
do
it's
both checks?
15 total.
It was one check.
That
Wondering
would
if it was,
Yeah, that'd have been,
you
15
accounted for the
total.
7,500 in
That
your
would've been
building.
right here.
uh,
right
Donation
here,
line.
these two here. You got the buildings at 75, and the fair was 75. So
Okay.
it was 15 that year, and it'll be 18.
oh, okay, so
That was, yep, and that's separate, yeah.
this could be a year behind. We'll get the, we'll
I'm
get the,
guessing
we'll get
you
that
haven't
correct.
gotten the current year amount of 18,000, but
18,000.
this year that this reflects was 15,000. And I'm wondering if you put 7,500 as county support and the other 7,500 went into your building.
We,
building.
I suppose when we pulled it out of our books there,
Yeah, you had
because
to split them up.
because as you notice on the bottom of the thing on county support,
It does show the,
on the, well, I guess that's a little more, but on our budget, or on our books, yeah, it only was 7,500. So yeah, they must have
So
put the
this
other.
here will be, this will be this year's is what you're gonna get. First,
18,000.
The 23,
and you
Okay.
can request,
18 this
they
year.
usually request that probably in March or April, so usually you get the next one.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
you'll get 18 from us
This,
now.
For this-
Oh, okay, okay.
for
Yeah.
this
For
year.
25 for next year.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, that's just,
Yeah.
we, got new bookkeepers in the last few years, everything else, and
It's confusing when you're having that overlap for the request. You're
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Requesting
Mhm.
more
Yeah.
already and you
Yeah.
still haven't received what we.
Yeah, last year,
Yeah.
yeah.
Once again, any amount's appreciated. We
Yeah.
really appreciate any amount, and, we don't want to be demanding a lot of money, but I mean, it's just that,
Yeah.
we just,
It would be nice that when people are looking at the county support, that they see the.
we will get that
Yeah.
corrected in next year's.
Yep.
So
What year are these others from?
this would be from the 23.
So the
23,
calendar
23.
year 23, which was in the spring of 23, so your
Or 22?
previous 22,
so-
23 budget.
It'd be back to the 7,500, but there was two 7,500, one went into each
Yeah.
account, so if you ain't looking, it's hard to get.
It's our,
There was probably,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so,
yeah,
but,
decipher, yeah.
but for the one on the county fair next year, on
For the 24, which you'll be
What-
getting in the
what should we
next
have?
couple
in
That'll
months,
be
it should be
18,000.
18.
18, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure that gets corrected.
Yeah.
It's sorry for the
Yeah.
mistake, whatever.
But I mean, it's easy to do when you
You
got
know,
two.
there ain't very many people that make mistakes in the road. Sorry about that, guys. We really
No.
apologize for that. You know,
Attendance has been staying pretty steady or going up or.
it's actually kind of going, the year after COVID, when they released everybody, was the best year ever, because we caught the right time when everybody could finally go out and do it. And actually, they're staying pretty well now, so, yeah. But if we do that extra thing on Monday night, we'll bring another one through, but, I got on the fair board about 12 years ago, and from then till now, it's just unbelievable the number of people that are coming there versus then, but But everybody's getting more aware of what we're doing too, because we're not just a one place fair, we're the whole county thing as well.
Yeah.
You're taking more of a risk by hiring a little higher paying performances.
Yeah.
And that in turn brings in better.
That's a big risk, whatever, so,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
And another thing we do is in the spring, we just donate the use of our grounds to the firemen. It's a bull bash committee,
Oh,
and they
Yep.
put together that fireman's rodeo.
go to, yeah.
And they have, that's all donated to firemen, so.
And then we give them a percentage out of our profits of what we make too at that time, which goes, once again, going back to count. So it's just, I just want everybody to be aware that the Winneshiek County Fair is helping everybody, not just.
And it's not just during fair time.
No, it isn't. I mean, there's every day of the year, we got something going on, you know, so, I mean, the archery people use it in the winter in one building for teaching youth archery and stuff, you know, and stuff like that. So it's just unbelievable the amount of stuff that goes on.
Spring, the high school uses it for spring and fall dance. They have that
Yep.
building, just had one here a week ago Saturday.
Yeah. And then
Unless you're there.
the FFA, Decor FFA uses it for their fruit stuff, whatever. We give them a building, warm it up, and once again, no fee or nothing. But once again, we shouldn't have to charge them people. That's what we're trying to bring up in the world is our young youth.
Several people have asked, you know, took the trees out there around the track and you said you could put a fence back in there.
Yes.
To do that. Are you gonna put trees back in anywhere?
We're hoping to do something, but it's pretty hard to put trees along a boulevard because you always gotta maintain them so they ain't hanging over and stuff like that. And then so they don't hang. We're hoping to get a nice sign in there and stuff, because the only reason we took the trees out is everybody could see that there was a bunch of real bad ones in there. We started taking some of the dead and bad ones out. All of a sudden, you start getting too many of them. We've all cleaned up stuff. And you know, once you get dug into it, you might get too far into it stuff, you know, and then, you know, our thing is to put something like the Winneshiek County Fair on the outside of that, and then our raceway or something, just so people can acknowledge. To be honest with that, I kind of like the way it's open. You can really see the fairgrounds, but we got to protect the road from the racetrack on top of it. So, you know.
Yeah, some people feel like if you'd put trees, it would help with the noise from the races in the neighborhood there.
Probably not there. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
Fence.
Well, but
Yeah.
that only goes so high and the trees would go higher,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once we get started at it, you know, we're going to add to it and make you know, because appearance is still the biggest thing. Everybody, the first thing you see when you go into a place gives you a really good indication how the place is going to be. So that's why we like our new building right up front. Everybody sees that now and say, well, this probably isn't a bad place.
Yeah.
You know, but yes, in answer to your questions, we're hoping to do something there. It all isn't planned. We're still trying to get money for the fence and then the other stuff. And
I know the city has just received a big grant for trees.
did they?
Yeah, and potentially, I know in the past had wanted to put trees in there. It wouldn't be any charge at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was a good thing. And at the time, they approached us one time about putting them in the boulevard, but with our board rotating so many people, who do you put in charge of kind of maintaining them down the road? Because once again, we can't have stuff on the boulevard after it gets big. It's all fine and great when it's small. It'd be nice to get something that only gets so big that once you're done, your maintenance is done. You know how hard it is to get volunteer
But
people
no,
to do
the
this.
fence goes up 15, 12 feet and the tree goes up 70 feet. So there's a big
Yeah.
difference in what it can do.
Correct, but yeah, seeing the space, we will look into it. We are looking into it because that's kind of our thought here.
A number of people have commented about that.
Yeah.
They think the county owns, that's the county's deal.
No,
I said,
no,
it's,
no.
the county doesn't do
No,
that.
and that's the thing, yeah, everybody thought it was always the Decorah Fair, everybody didn't know it was a Winneshiek County Fair and everything else. Now we're trying to define that it's
It has its own
everybody's
entity.
fair. We got 500 and some members of the Ag Association, become a member, it's part of your fair too. I mean, it's really simple, you know, and, you know. Vicky had it, for sure. yeah.
Truly. So you're gonna put up a solid fence there?
No, it's actually gonna be kind of one where the air can get through it, stuff like that. It's gonna kind of a mesh type one, whatever.
That goes in your current chain link?
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, it's gonna be a protect. Once again, we gotta get a protective one, so nothing comes across there, get it the right height and everything. So a lot of this stuff, goes on, how does our insurance cover it, how does everything else? That's the first thing, because once again, we gotta protect everything, you know. But anything's gonna look better than, you know, having a bunch of dead trees and a bunch of stuff in there, you know, so, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, much appreciate it. And sorry for the wrong number on that thing, we'll get it straight.
It's not a problem.
Thank you.
I got it.
You-
Nothing you heard.
Nope.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
On the agenda, Steve VandenBrink, EMS Association funding requests. Good morning, Steve.
Morning. Thank you for, letting me come talk to you for a few minutes. And just same as we did last year, $5,000 help fund the EMS, the association by reimbursing people who go to classes, picking up pieces of equipment that, aren't readily available through other donated funds. And so that's what those funds are actually used for, on an annual basis. So, I'd like to say that we added a number of people this year, but we added a goose egg.
Oh, no.
What's better than going backwards?
It is better than going backwards. We did actually add a couple of nurse exemptions. So a nurse, a PA, can be exempted from EMS education process. So we do have a few of those that come on and go off and they want to help volunteer. And so they'll go through our orientation process and do that for the volunteers. And so we do see some of those coming here and there. But the other thing I wanted to just give you a heads up about is currently there's EMS funding options for the state. And in the state, there's Iowa Code 357, which creates a EMS service district. And then Iowa Code 422D, and that creates an EMS essential service. These are both tax processes for taxing housing, land and such. The 357 can be a max of 1,000, or should say $1 per thousand, and can include an additional ask. The EMS essential service is a max of 75 cents per thousand. So what's included in that is no agricultural land or centrally assessed property. Get it right.
That's utilities, basically.
But I pulled a group together back in the 12th of January. And we're going to continue to meet further, talk about these different options for funding EMS, what it would look like, what we would put the budget to, and any of whatever we come up with, we'll have to come back to the Board of Supervisors for either a resolution or, let's see.
Does it have to go on the ballot?
Yes, yes. So either a resolution that making it an EMS an essential service, or a notice that it'll be on the ballot, that 357 EMS district would have like a date, September 9th for the Board of Supervisors approval of the engineering plat. Both of them would have to go to the county voters and get a 60% pass. Whatever this group that's going to kind of review these options, there was there were 5 counties last November, 4 of the counties passed their EMS essential service.
Oh, 5?
Of the 5, yeah.
Does it have to be on a certain election year, an off year?
Nope.
Or okay.
It can be any election year. And just one's a resolution, one is, I forget what the term It just has to give, both of them have to give 60-day notice before you do the resolution and read it 3 times versus an ask, and then if approved, then you take it to a vote.
Are we starting to see any takers on the NICC classes for EMS?
Not to my knowledge from Winneshiek County. There are people that are in the West Union class and West Union walk-on class. But I don't know where they may be residents of.
Getting thin, getting it
Big then.
Do you have a strong feeling between the district and the central service options?
No, not right now. You know, you look at one, you can go 1,000 or $1 per 1,000 and an additional ask versus 75 cents. I asked Ben what was the funding for fire department's trustee, roughly $500,000. My budget for WinMed, just for the ambulance, to staff that 1.5 ambulances 24/7 is about 1.5. I just bought just have an ambulance that we ordered in November of 21. It got delivered here last week. And that with a trade-in was $226,000.
3 years
Giving
behind.
away.
3 years behind. Is it obsolete now?
No, actually, my routine is to actually take that ambulance, run it for 10 years. Then we'll actually remount it because we have a nice layout now. All 3 of them are the same. A remount would be about savings about 50 to 80,000.
What was the cost of the new one?
226,000. So it was 210, and then they had RAM put on their increase, and Lifeline had to do their increase because of time frames and supply.
Two and a half years later, it cost
$226,000.
I understand that's kind of how our dump trucks for you.
Yep. Okay. So it is
All equipment. Or the 450 something for the,
Maintainer went up 100,000.
and that was a Ridgeway fire truck.
Yep.
Yeah.
50.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Should we put that discussion on future agenda instead of today, as far as the
For your dedication.
increase,
Thank you.
whether to consider it or not?
levy. I wouldn't do anything.
You can't
until
really
their
decide.
board comes and requests you to do it. I mean, you don't even know which one they're gonna request.
When did
There.
you say they're meeting again?
I don't know. He didn't say, I don't think a specific time. They just met a week ago or something. So
15 or something like that.
So did he indicate that there'd probably be something like about September? If they
the
do-
final
Authorization.
request to get it on the ballot is gonna be towards the end of August. Hopefully they're, by middle of summer, they're knowing where they're headed so they can get all the paperwork in order to get it on the ballot, but
Because I had to do 60 days prior to the election.
I know rural Iowa is really, it's one of the places we're kind of hurting is ambulance services to rural Iowa. So, something we want to keep tabs on.
All right, it's 10:30. Next on the agenda, Tony Phillips, Planning, Zoning and Floodplain Administrator. Discuss floodplain zoning restrictions. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. So I received word that I was subpoenaed to Congress for some questions here. What I'm passing out to you here is the one little section of the proposed floodplain ordinance that covers development within the floodway fringe. Okay, so when we take zone A of the floodplain, we divide it when we take zone A of the floodplain, that is approximate floodplain, that's what they call it. It can be divided into two things, floodway, or floodway fringe. Moving water is floodway, predominantly stagnant water is floodway fringe. Okay, so this, I'm assuming since on the map, we do have some floodway fringe right above it, this would be floodway fringe. The question I was told that you want answered is, what can be built there? The very first part, permitted uses. All development within the floodway fringe district shall be permitted to the extent that they are not prohibited by an other ordinance or provided they meet applicable performance standards of the floodway fringe district. So what does that mean? The next 4 pages basically say you have to build it flood proof. That's that flood proof construction.
So it doesn't require, I think the big question is, it doesn't require it to be built elevated it just requires that it's.
All right, if you scroll down just about 2 inches, it says paragraph B, residential structures. The very first line says that it will be elevated 1 foot above the base flood elevation.
Always.
So depending on what you want to build is how it's going to be. I know way earlier I was asked about the solar panels. We looked into that. And flood-proof construction is going to be, one, the utilities have to be a foot above the floodplain. All right, so the electrical junction boxes, all that need to be situated a foot above the floodplain. And the post must be sufficiently, they must be engineered so they're going to stay in the ground. They're not going to float away, push up or whatever. And that is all up to an engineer to design that. And then that engineer's certification upon completion of the project would be sent away and filed with the DNR and FEMA.
What's the process for if a person were to come in? What is the general process that they go through in this scenario with let's say your office, Tony?
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is going to be the floodplain permit. Since this is zone A, everybody has to apply for, well, I have to stop and preface this, assuming that we do adopt this floodplain ordinance and we join the NFIP. Okay, this is zone A. They're going to come into my office, say they want to do something. I'm going to say, all right, we need to apply for a floodplain permit. You're going to give me, we're going to have our county permit they're going to apply for, and they're going to apply for the state permit. When they apply for the state permit through the DNR will do their individual flood study. They will make the determination on floodway or floodway fringe. Then they will give me that information so I can issue our permit with the study information on it. They would ask when they apply for the permit, they would have to declare what it is they're building. If it's a residential structure, you know, solar panels, whatnot else. They declare what it is they want to build and how they want to build it. And then from there, the criteria is added on.
So people could put a foundation building in that area. As long as their utility boxes are above.
Yep.
The 1
if
foot. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be off the ground. It would-
So a basement.
The floor is a basement, so
So if you flip that page over, the very top paragraph, number 1, fully enclosed areas below the lowest floor. And then they give criteria. You'd have to have 2 openings, 1 on each side that water can pass through. I mean, it's all in there. If you like to read it, I can read it out loud if you want me to, but.
Can't be like a regular basement because it's water's got to be able to flow through, and it says it can be used for parking vehicles or low damage storage and that kind of thing.
It's got to be a raised structure so water flows through it.
So the lowest, yes, the lowest floor of the lowest living floor or useful floor has to be 1 foot above the flood, base flood elevation. Okay. Anything below that would have to be able, water can pass through it, stuff you can get out of the way, stuff you don't care if it gets ruined as long as it don't float away.
And this You can't say for sure because it takes the state's determination when a permit is applied, but likely there are areas of this land that they're considering selling on the edge that's in this fringe district or fringe zone.
Correct. You're absolutely right. I can't tell you for certain that it's all gonna be fringe. My guess is it would be called fringe.
Because there isn't constant flowing water.
Correct.
Yeah, and this map here, if I may, that shows the area, we're talking about these areas here that are.
Fringe.
Yes.
That are currently in that zone A, that are likely fringe.
Yes, I think if you look at the very top, so if you look at the very top of this, on the opposite side of the road, it's a different color pattern.
That's
That
the-
there is AE, and AE is already studied area.
Oh.
So the DNR did a study of that area already and determined that that is floodway fringe. And it basically
Okay.
connects to the land that we are looking at.
And so if the board wanted to, an option would be to say that they are going to put the same restrictions on this part that's not blue as what is issued for the part that is.
I have no comment on that.
Yeah,
That-
that's, well, I guess they're gonna ask Andy here in a moment.
Right, does anyone have any other questions for Tony?
There would be no basements below ground permitted in that area, correct?
There would not be a basement with a living quarters in it. I mean, there could be no residential underneath
But it could be excavated out.
it could be excavated out. And they would have to follow this paragraph 1 here.
That's to flow through.
Yeah, the water's gotta
Paragraph
be able to go
B1.
in there.
So it limits on, water has to pass through it. You're limited to what you can store in it. That there.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
Next on the agenda, Andy VandenBrink. This process timeline, terms and restrictions for potential land sale in Freeport, is possibly set up public hearing, legal questions regarding agenda and other issues. Well, what do you have for me?
I have a question. It's come to my attention that, and I wish we could get some potential buyers in here to answer some questions, but Plan A per Rotocast was to put this on their own land over on their Old State Road land next to their facility there. And then run solar straight down molars to connect to the other building. And I sent you an email question about this, and they could get a permit from the county to run it in our right of way to connect the two.
I believe they could, yes.
So it comes down to what size array they're putting in. If they're putting it in, planning to put one into for future growth, they could get less payback on the stuff they don't use, on the energy they don't use, they collect. But if they're to build it just to capacity need, I don't understand why that couldn't be an option if that's what they'd like to do. And that's something we could discuss.
It wasn't cost effective when he was in here to say to run that, it cost way more than the whole project would even to run that line.
It doesn't cost more than the whole project, and
But
they
it
are,
wasn't cost effective to do it
they
that
were
way.
willing to look at that, but Alliance said that it wasn't their policy.
No, it wasn't cost effective.
They had already done a study.
They already done a study on
I
it.
didn't hear them present that in an open
Yeah.
meeting.
When he was here that day, he did. He said it was not, that's why they came here about this property.
And
They already did that study and looked into it.
I'll have to go look at that meeting, because I don't remember hearing any plans or capacity shared with us that day.
That's why they came to about this property, because it was not cost effective to run that line that far.
And they have to own it.
Yeah.
And
They own the land over on,
I understand that, but it's not cost effective to put the transmission lines from there to the other building.
Building,
And that's
yeah.
why they were requesting the purchase of the
Yeah.
property.
He sat right here that day and told us that.
That's what I recall.
okay. So can we revisit that? I mean, that's an option where they own the land already. And
I
they,
know they did. They came and said it was not feasible, cost effective for them to do it that way. He sat right here at the table and told us that day. That's why they came about this property. asked about the property if we'd sell it, because it was not cost effective to run it from way up that way.
So I'm hearing a different story from people who met with Rotocast that they didn't do it because Alliance said they couldn't do it. So I'd really
Well, I
like to
guess-
get down to the truth of this one.
Well, I guess if Alliance said they couldn't do it, they can't do it. I mean,
No,
what,
Luther was able to run solar connection from their solar array.
well, I was just going by what he said here.
County right of way.
I believe it was the cost effective issue when they got the
Yeah.
cost of running it over there.
Yeah, it was not cost effective.
But it was an option.
But it made no sense economically.
I mean,
in their
it wasn't
mind.
worth doing it.
They're the
It
one.
was not worth doing it.
Right.
But not cost effective, that means it's not worth doing.
Is it cost effective for us to be selling a mitigation field, a flood mitigation field long-term
What do you mean?
for
cost
damages for
effective?
flooding? I mean, right now, we're using land that we own in a buffer zone for flood mitigation, for future flooding, because it will flood again. We're not saying we can prevent floods. We're just trying to limit the amount of damage from the flooding. What is our economic long-term on this one? To give up control of that land?
I guess majority of that, above that was already grass last time it flooded. Above that
It was
four
in a
acre.
corn
Arguments
crop.
about this,
No, not the whole thing.
arguments about this
You mean
land
the-
about out in
B,
Freeport.
C, and D.
Just a moment.
B, C, and D were in grass back then. It wasn't cornfield. It was just the 9 acres that was in cornfield.
I guess I'm recommending on my own behalf that we put this floodway fringe policy in for the whole parcel and offer it up for sale that way.
I think, Andy,
No.
did we get an answer on the question for the public's knowledge of the artifacts that possibly exist in there? Would you reiterate that for the benefit of the people online?
We do not have an issue with that any longer. They looked at it more closely. They found that that was an area north of Lot A. And also that the study had been completed as recently, I think it's 2007.
6 or 7, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there were no concerns in the area that's being sold, so that is not an issue. Where are you at with adopting the floodplain ordinance?
And we've set the
Comes-
public hearing at the end of this month.
My suggestion would be that you complete that process and identify where these parcels sit in relation to that ordinance. And then if you want to go ahead with the sale, you sell it, the ordinance is in place, and all of these factors are already part of your sale. If you do this now, if the ordinance changes at all before you adopt it, then, you know, which set of rules are we going by? Yeah, I think that given the fact that you've got a public hearing coming up fairly soon, it would make some sense to know
Might even be next week.
where that's at.
I can tell you it's
29th.
So it's a week from now.
That's probably a
Could-
good idea.
Could you kind of work on your discussion pending that so that maybe if that passes, you have the paperwork ready then for after that public hearing or something? I mean, otherwise you keep pushing it off for so long.
Well, that'll pass, but then you have to publish it. I mean, and once it's effective, it seems to me that whoever buys the property thinks it's subject to that if it sits in that fringe area. You don't need to include any additional
I think
restrictions within.
the idea is that this area here
That part
is
is,
not in the fringe area, so but they want to make the same restrictions there
Sure.
that the
As-
village does.
so the entire parcels that we're selling all have the same restrictions on them.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. I thought Tony said this was not completed yet.
The adoption of the,
It's not adopted.
It has not adopted.
Okay, I
There's a
thought,
proposed map and so.
So
okay,
if you think it's better, we wait till that's adopted and then go ahead and
So the map is official. The map has been official. The map is official. It's the ordinance governing regulations in those areas that isn't. That's next.
and that I think you feel if that gets adopted, passed, published, it's going to make that resolution a lot clearer. Because you have a definite ordinance that you can reference in terms of this portion that is not identified as fringe for flooding is also going to be subject to the ordinance number, whatever.
okay.
I think we need to be careful going through, because what Tony just shared with us and that other document says that structures could be put in there as long as the basement is storage with a pass-through for the water flow. So that still would allow for some type of construction. And we heard from 376 petition signers in a room full of people twice, one in Freeport, one here, that they don't want this land sold and taken out of a flood mitigation buffer. So always keep in mind what we heard at the public hearing too, that they don't want structures on here. They want it kept in a buffer zone for floodwater absorption.
Do we have anything else, Amy?
From my end. You guys,
No.
good,
We have the new copy of that purchase agreement, so we're going to,
I'll get
I'm
it
just gonna get
signed.
the signatures so we can make it official.
you guys are picking up the left turn sometime.
Oh, yeah. We gotta get
yeah, I mentioned to John, he'll come over and pick it up.
Okay.
You
All right,
ain't charging us rent, are you?
I like it, I like it. Thank you. Not yet. Eventually.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
We're not on schedule when it comes.
No, no.
So we don't have an update on the speakers, right? I haven't heard anything.
No, when they were here and presented that, they said it would take a couple weeks to get them ordered and then they have to fit it into their work schedule. So I would think they must have them. It's been more than 2 weeks now since they were here, so they should actually have them. Now they just got to get them here to install them. See if they work. Cross my fingers, I guess.
We have not had any movement yet on moving the clerk of court's records over to the across the wall into the jail cells because we do not have any shelving material yet.
An extra.
Oh, yeah.
But Mark, there's some really good stacks of Calmer Courier waiting for you right there. I saw them very neatly stacked. There's an opportunity there, Mark.
Take them.
They were waiting for you to make an offer on a donation, so I think you got to decide if that's a $1 donation or.
A donation's a donation. You know, I mean, if you need to give $1, I'll give you the
Because
dollar.
I did,
You can use the space.
I did talk to one of the other members and they're not in agreement that they should be disposed of, so.
They're already skating.
Well, I just think that
I mean,
they should be, a location should be found otherwise for them.
well, you want to find it, we're running out of space too.
Well, not-
We have all the kilty uniforms up there too.
But rather than,
You know, now we're getting into the second level
Where are
of
those?
cells.
Up here?
Yeah, all the original 1950s kilty uniforms.
They should be saved somewhere, but
we can sign here.
No, they're all up there too. We should you should see what we have up there. We should take some time one of these days to go.
society should save some of those and then maybe.
I mean, we have boxes of them that are now on top of the cages above the jail cell.
I don't think they're all there, they're just samples of the
Well, they should be.
different.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, the county social services, they're dissolving the mental, the regions and turning them into districts now. So it's more of a state consolidation.
We're already 49 out of 50 for mental health
So-
care in the state.
They're,
They're gonna hurt it more.
there's legislation happening that until it's done, they don't exactly know how it's all gonna be reorganized, but the process has started.
If you talk to previous board members, they, way back when they first started the regions, that was the theory was that there was a whole idea was we're gonna turn the counties into regions first. And then eventually they'll just take the counties out of the mix, which is what.
Plan's been in action.
Yeah, that for about 10 years.
And then,
And look where it got us.
And the goal,
We are rock
a
bottom.
lot of people in the business say they're moving towards privatizing it, but I'm not gonna make that.
I can believe that. Next on the agenda, Michael Kueny, county engineer with the road department updates. Good morning, Michael.
Hello, not much to report so far, mostly just continuing the budget process and the 5-year program process. Met with Nick on that. So I just doing part of my duties when I went through the department head meeting and safety committee meeting on Monday. NACO leadership training, we had a little snafu where I wasn't getting the emails to get started, and I caught up over the weekend on all the videos, and there's the quote unquote homework. I don't know what else you would call it. I'm gonna finish up tonight. We're still working with the right-of-way violations. There wasn't much time for that. W14, the Spillville portion of Main Street. We got SHPO clearance, not final NEPA clearance on that. There was some discussion about we need to put a special note in our plans, so we're gonna do that and we'll be good on the SHPO portion of the Spillville side of things, but the Spillville, the Ridgeway portion and the Fort Atkinson to Spillville, we have not received SHPO. We contacted SHPO this morning to push that through because Friday was the end of their 30-day review period. That is, we're progressing there.
Were they recommending vibration control as we went through by some of the buildings and so forth, like they did at the bridge on the?
There was concern of that, and they said, you know, basically monitor. It's a note that basically says monitor this and contact. I forget who, but contact somebody to if you see some kind of issues. I'd have to reread the note again. To be exact.
But it's something that's, something of the contractor will have to monitor that and decide if further mitigation needs to be addressed or.
Right, and then whoever is inspecting will also be aware of this. It'll be in the notes.
But that would say previously they had to put earth seismic monitors where the old stone mill was, and that created a whole bunch of extra and couldn't use vibratory rollers to get compaction, et cetera, et cetera. So
I've heard of that. I
It's
don't
not
know the
pretty,
ins and outs of that.
I know.
There's nothing that they've said that says
Something that extreme.
indicates any of that. So, and yet, basically, I would say, my understanding is that because they come back to the point that they're at, that we won't get that.
And that would all fall on the contractor that gets the bid.
And the inspecting.
Well, it could come back on inspection if we start to see issues with vibratory compaction, but that's not a expectation.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I think I've gone through all of my report here. I don't know if Andy reported on this, but ICAP sent the county its stance on the appeal situation. Did you?
No.
We got Andy's note about it, but not
Okay.
further.
I'm not sure who it went through. I can forward you the email that I had. But they were working with Andy on that. And then Andy updated me on you had asked about the piling of the snow I think he sent an email to the whole board on that. So that's all I have.
If there's a problem, just call.
Call me.
Local tow truck.
Yeah.
Call the local tow truck. Request you get more cable.
Well, do you think we can put a yellow flashing light on each side next to the low maintenance?
Well, like I
That's
said,
something we could do.
like I had suggested, put a sign, enter at your own risk. This is the Class C road.
You
But
know,
it's not Class C.
That Class C.
Yeah, Class C.
Class
Well,
A,
no winter
no
maintenance.
winter maintenance.
No, when just explain to people, this is not,
I mean,
That's
we can, I think that I would imagine that we can do that. What I would say is, I'm not prepared to do that yet. That's what I would say, just because. But I don't see any reason we could do
sign
that.
it, signage is the easy thing to do. And
I
at
would
least,
say blinking red signage.
well, but just in the fluorescent, yellow,
Yeah.
orange,
Like,
whatever,
stop.
green.
Then that gets starts getting pricier, right?
Yeah, you
well,
start.
the old fashioned barricades that used to have the square block battery and the yellow flashing light on roadways.
Yeah.
I wonder if those are still available because those can't be too expensive anymore.
No, and it's just a short-term deal,
Rather than doing like a permanent solar that's running
Yeah,
Yeah.
24
cost you
or 12
Yeah.
months a year, you would just do it in the winter.
Cost you
We'll spend that kind of money.
$3,000-4,000 a
And
sign.
those things used to be along every roadside flashing as you went down the highway if there was any road work going on.
Do you want me to look into that?
Why don't you just,
Can we put snow fence or barricades or
No,
No
no
barricades.
barricades?
but a flashing light to try to draw more attention to the sign.
Yeah.
What color is the no winter maintenance sign? It is yellow. So a flashing yellow light would be appropriate probably if you wanted
some red flags,
to. Yeah.
just something to gain. more
Yeah,
attention.
maybe some flag, that would be fairly cheap if you could get flags on there.
Just a thought. I don't want to make your life.
No, it's not a 10, but it is tough to stretch out how many feet.
Anything, if we can help somebody from,
Yeah, I'll look, I haven't spent any time because
Yeah.
basically got Andy had answered everything that we needed, but I'll look into this for sure.
Are you having a meeting today is that these two after the
Yep.
meeting?
After the meeting, yes, that's,
We'll have some budget work, so it might be an hour or something, but
that's fine.
Did you get that RPA STBG grant deal for the end of February? It's 2.786 million for FY 2028. I should have got an email on it last Thursday or Wednesday from the policy.
Did I get it?
Yeah,
I did not get that grant, but I did,
I mean, you got the information on it or whatever.
because I went to the meeting, I know about it, but I did not.
Oh, okay.
I have not received any formal email that I'm aware of on that, so
And I don't know how that works. Sometimes they rotate counties.
I'm putting it,
Rotate counties on who gets it or whatever.
right, and, that is.
Because the application- Yeah, the application was it's due February 29th.
Yeah,
So that might be, I know they rotate counties.
yes, and
You
Nick
know.
and I are very aware of that, and I have
Yeah,
on our work. that we've
Okay.
done.
I just got email on it. It was either Thursday or Friday. So,
discuss with the other engineers come Thursday, Essex County.
yeah,
Yes, definitely we'll be talking about that. And I'm also getting training on, let's say, the second, the formal training, the Iowa Department of Transportation
Yeah, okay.
training. We're gonna finally do the county engineer trainings for the secondary roads. So I'll be doing that, and that'll be, it's good for sure. Yeah, that being said, that is in, that money right there is in the 5-year program, spreadsheet right now.
Cause that was 2.786 million and it's a 20% match for a bridge project or whatever.
Sure.
But it's for FY 2028, so it's,
Like I said, I'm aware of it.
Yeah, I
if you
didn't
could
know if you
forward- If you could forward me your email, that you received on that information, just so that you and I are on the same page.
yeah, I mean, I just got the information on what the amount was. What the due date.
I haven't seen any formal amount. I just,
Oh, okay.
I just, had a rough estimate on that.
Just a refresher, the bridge for that, basically one house on River Road, we were gonna put railroad cars, was it?
Yeah.
That's this summer, that's happening?
Yes, that we have it loosely scheduled for fiscal year 2025, which would that's, again, that 5-year program is still pretty loose, and I kind of worked with Nick Christen on that. And that's looking at using local funds on that one, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna, that's one of the things that's, want to make sure we're gonna be a little bit tight on budget, and that'd be, we have 2 bridges like that we want to get done.
So I have been working with Michael to, when he gets caught up enough on this 5-year program, to do a work session where he just has an hour or so at the end of your board meeting to just talk about this stuff. So the 5-year plan and so on.
Yes, and right now even when we discuss, it'll be pretty fluid. So, and you had said something last week about having an average daily traffic map. There is a map that already exists.
But is it up on your website?
It is not.
That would,
So-
I said, so the public could see.
It is not on the county engineer's website, but it is accessible through the DOT website.
So maybe you could just have a link on our website to go to it.
Because what happens is people will say, well, we get the most traffic of any road in the county. It probably isn't correct.
Yeah.
It'd just be nice if it existed so they could see it in real time.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything else from Michael?
We'll see you after our.
Thank you. Thank you.
I get him all tired out from talking budget.
I'm already tired.
I already got it figured out.
And here comes the drainage budget discussion.
So I think we have a couple of guests here.
I noticed that.
And so they're going to, I think, join us to discuss, Sean and Dan, to discuss the research we did about the 911 tower funding option of putting some of that in the 911 or in the Emergency Management Commission budget. And so Andy had done some research on, I actually had asked about this last year to the Department of Management. And I had forwarded that email to Sean and Andy before they started doing their research. And the Department of Management last year said, ask your county attorney. And there was this pending litigation in Mahaska County about what kind of funding the Emergency Management Commission can provide to 911 services. And so that has been resolved. And one of the key issues was that, at least from Andy's description of the court ruling, the Emergency Management Commission couldn't provide funding for ongoing costs like
for the PSAP center. So like something that is dictated in 34A that speaks directly to how surcharge dollars are funded. As I understand, Mahaska was kind of supplementing that, so to speak. So I know it's difficult to decipher, but like the 911 upgrade or the tower project upgrade that we're doing is separate than that of 34A and 911, and how it deals with the PSAPs, the public safety answering point. So that in itself, and then I think Mahaska's was very much a personality conflict between the commission and the supervisors. So it just quickly got out of control for several years down there.
The Emergency Management Commission was trying to fund this part that may not have been allowed to be funded. And then they were submitting requests to the Board of Supervisors that the board didn't want to pay. So that's why it ended up in court and so on. So we've kind of got through that resolved, and we have the okay from both Hacker Nelson and Andy that if you should choose an agreement with the commission to fund some of the tower funding through the commission budget, the Emergency Management Commission budget, you could do that. That would relieve the stress on the general fund, but it also would require a
Higher
tax levy
yeah.
increase. So, you know, I went in the email I sent trying to describe all this. There's probably a lot of different options there. I don't think it's the bottom line. I don't think it is a good idea to lower your general fund levy because of the restrictions, because that will then set you at a lower starting point next year at this time. But do you really need the whole 900,000 put into the supplemental levy through Emergency Management Commission? Probably not. That's maybe overkill. So maybe there is something in between where you could split it some, and that way you don't fight this only $60,000 in new money and trying to figure out how you're going to make your budget and so on. And still, I mean, you're going to probably end up with a supplemental levy increase anyway without doing any of this because of
that IT.
The new IT position that we're funding through emergency management, and then the property insurance costs that are going up.
90,000.
Yeah.
You know, these are all real increases based on, I mean, it's in reality.
Yeah, I think those are ones you're just gonna have to swallow hard and do no matter what. Now, do you want to also add this additional levy increase by transferring some of this expense to the Emergency Management Commission?
I think I can't thank Ben and Andy enough for doing their end of it, but I think the difference between us and Mahaska is I've always tried to, it all comes down to partnerships, right? I mean, that's what the commission wants with you guys. 29C allows 5 different funding mechanisms to fund emergency management. And I'm looking at this, and I know we're really splitting hairs in the coffer of the dollar, but I look at this, if you guys want to proceed with doing something as kind of doing a voluntary cost share, that you guys are, like you're saying, we want to have you cover this much. So that's kind of what you're doing, is how I'm looking at it. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything to you guys. It's just kind of how I'm looking at this potential partnership. So
it will require some extra budget work because Sean's already, his public hearing is this Wednesday, so his budget is already set without this additional money included. But he can do a budget amendment as long as you know before you do your budget that to have the money available, then he can amend his budget. I mean, he couldn't amend his budget in July to add 200,000 if you didn't put any more money in there to add. But if you put it in there knowing that this is coming, then it's more reasonable. But we're talking short time now, because in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you need to be kind of wrapping up your budget figures. So
yeah, and I'm not trying to pressure you guys. I hope you don't take it that way. It's just Wednesday at my commission meeting. It's difficult to get everyone together for a meeting. Depending on what you guys decide the path forward, I've asked Ben to maybe step in on Wednesday and he can give kind of an overview to my commission. He says it way more eloquently than I ever did. So that's kind of, I've told Ben to come over.
I think this is so easily marketable to our citizenship, because we're talking about 911 capabilities for law enforcement and emergency management all communicate in situations where they can't communicate right now because of the dips in our topography. So I think it's a very easily sold idea to do this, to also then not be in such a crunch on the regular budget. I mean, it makes sense. And we don't want to lose services in this county. That's why a lot of us live here, because it's a really good county to live in.
Hindsight's always 2020, when you guys decided to move forward on the tower project, if Ben and everyone would have known what would have happened 2 years later, maybe it would have been a different conversation, but,
At that time, a lot of other counties that were doing similar projects went and issued
Bonded for their, which then
Still the same
established,
money.
it's the same, it actually ends up costing more. 'Cause
More,
now you're
yep.
paying interest and you're paying bonding
Bonding,
service
yep.
fees, and you have to have a financial consultant fees and attorneys and
That's
so
right.
on.
Yeah.
So it costs more to do it that way, but that would establish a separate debt service levy that would have been protected from all these rules that the legislature is making. But you tried to do the efficient and do the thing that saved the taxpayers the most money, and now they've changed the rules in the middle of the game, so now you're stuck.
Well, we have to look at this openly too. This year, if we were able to raise the tax levy rate for the general, we probably would be.
Yeah.
We just leave it there and do it that way.
Where you're raising that tax levy rate really
It
goes.
doesn't affect the bottom line of the taxpayer. And you're looking at a year where we're having a little bit less than 1% increase in values, but it's almost all predominantly on residential values. So, people, rural landowners are actually, their taxes are going down if you don't change the levy rates. So if you do have to raise it some, they aren't going to see as big a hit as they would otherwise.
When we went down to the auditors meeting last year, didn't they, DOM talk about our legislation was being discussed that they would also probably try to do something with the supplemental rate?
So that's the theory, is that when they passed this legislation last year, they said this is only the first step. So what's the next step? They could be looking at other levy rates. If that is the case, there may be some benefit to raising it this year,
now.
just so if they do March or April and do another bill hits the table and it puts a freeze based on what you're at this year, at least you've got it set a little higher this year. We maybe won't know that before we do our budget, so it might be okay to.
That's similar to what we did last year.
Yes. Yep, you raised the general fund 10 cents that you maybe didn't absolutely need to, but it was good you did, because otherwise you'd be even more of a world of hurt this year.
I think no matter how it's done, basically the way things are getting set up with the state, no matter how you do it, it makes the county look like they're the ones sitting there with their hand in the cookie jar. And I think as long as it's sold, like you said, Shirley, that, look, we saved the county money. We didn't maybe do it the traditional way, like all the other counties have done it. So it makes us look like the bad guy, but we actually saved money the way we did it, because we weren't looking for a headline. We were looking for actual cost savings.
Yeah.
And the headline might not be as pretty the way we're doing it, but I still think the way this board did it, it saved the taxpayers money. Like you said, we'd probably be looking at it anyway. It's just a different way to do it, because they've tied one hand behind our back the way the tax laws.
Online people, does this all make sense?
And so no, I think it does make sense that you can package that. I also want to make sure in doing that people know that 911 is a separate budget from emergency management because of what the state has put into play. We're having to play within the rules of the game to be able to make sure we can pay for what we need to pay for to provide essential services, but it's still a separate obligation or service that's being sold. Likewise, it's totally separate from the sheriff's office. We just happen to serve as chair and vice chair because no one else wants to do it. So we put the time in, but I think to your point, Shirley, I mean, and to what you're saying too, Dan, this is the hand we were dealt. And at the end of the day, the headline might not be as streamlined and pretty, but it saved the county taxpayers money.
You know, to put a dollar figure on it, we had, what, 33.2 on this last deal. You got what, probably $1 million for that one up there roughly with, so we're at 4.2 million. Plus maybe a little, you take $5 million and other counties are talking, they're talking
10,
they're talking double that.
Yeah.
So now we're down to, we got $1.8 million left to pay on county projects. They're gonna spend 10. And I mean, yeah, we're sitting here way ahead of the 8 ball on this. And we haven't paid no interest.
I can
And
tell
we
you,
didn't have to hire no bond. I mean, we're probably saved, I don't know, $50,000-$60,000 there, easy.
Yeah.
Just on that. saving.
Bonding council and financial advisor fees
Easy.
always add,
And
you know, you're talking
you put $10
percentages.
million now at, which is gonna cost you 7% here. That's $700,000. That's what our payment is a year for a little, you know, a little less than what our payment is for the towers. You know, I mean, it's just yeah.
this doesn't help us now, obviously, but at the time, when you guys graciously agreed to move forward with Raycom's plan, I mean, we were really looked upon at the state, like, I had a lot of people reaching out to me like, how are you doing this? This is incredible what you guys are doing. Because you're not just running out and doing a bond, you know, to do all this.
And I think some acknowledgement needs to be given, even though Raycom has had some issues in the actual details of the implementation, that they were willing to take a payment over time. I mean, I'm sure there were companies that would have required that money right away, and we wouldn't have had this. We would have had the bond.
Totally, yeah.
So the fact that they were willing to split it up over 4 years was, or there's a few $100,000 that fifth year, but it's.
Yeah.
After with the changes with the fiber, it's down to negligible amount that last payment.
If we would have kicked the can down the road further instead of acting on it in the past, we'd be far worse off and the cost would have escalated significantly above where we are.
100%. I mean, when you guys did the John Deere tower, you know, the interest rate on that is, I mean, I would never say almost free money, but it's like 1.7 or whatever. We have looked at, maybe we try to pay that off, but I mean, the money could be better used. It's almost free money. So.
To your point, Steve, if you look at what the other counties are doing, like I said, they're right out of the gate, their project is at least double what ours, if not more than that. And no, they're maybe not looking at a levy increase, but no, they're just paying for it a different way. The money's there either way. It's a matter of how you organize it. So
And a debt service levy would still be a levy increase. It just would be in a different column that's protected from these changes in law, and
you're gonna pay 50% more on top of that 10 million. I mean, it ain't costing 10. It's gonna cost 1.5 when you get done paying the interest.
plus whatever you got.
Or what, plus all, yeah, I mean, it's easily, or 40% more you could easily put on there. So, I mean, we're getting it done for what their interest is.
so I guess
Need a motion.
I don't necessarily need a motion. What I need to know is when I prepare a first run of the budget, how much of that tower cost do you want to leave, if any, do you want to leave in the general fund? And how much do you want us to ask the Emergency Management Commission to fund? And therefore increase our supplemental levy. So, I mean, I threw out half, but I mean, it doesn't have to be half, but that seems to be,
Why not all of it?
But I would say you take what we're at what, 2.4 in we're at 2.4 in the general supplement. And if you, I mean, just for
In the sub.
sex appeal, whatever people look at it, if you keep that first number at 2, then we can maybe put it up at 0.5% or 50 cents per thousand. That would put us at 2.91. You still ain't changing. I mean, it just looks, if you up at 70 cents, now you're at 3 points. And now you really, but if you keep that just for the eye appeal of it, if we could, that would put it, you were at 6.4 to fill the whole deal.
okay.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna
So
say.
it's like $904,000 or something.
Yeah, my email outlined some of those levy numbers, and I could try to recalculate.
What would-
That 70 cents is 994,765. And that would put you at 3.11, which I personally think if we keep that 2.95 rather than, you ain't changing that first number. It don't look quite so, it doesn't look
People
quite
notice
so
it.
rough. You know, if you change that first number, now you raise it 1%. That's just, you raise it 1%. You don't look at the points behind it. But I would, if we even go with,
Like selling gas by 0.9.
Yeah,
cents,
you know,
$2.99.
If we go with, I would say 55 cents would want to be your max, because we got other,
And
we're
let's
gonna have
just
that
tell the
IT.
truth, just,
Well, I was
you
gonna,
create the narrative, you control the narrative.
I know, but it's
No.
just, this just looks better. I mean, just stop and think. If you don't put a 3 in front of there, people don't notice it so much.
No.
You change the 3 in there, you raised it 1%. No, we're not trying to hide anything, but just make it look, here's, we're doing our due diligence to try to keep it as narrow
But
as
it's
we
a real
can, but.
cost. I mean, if we just be truthful about it, this is a real cost to you for services we're providing in this county.
So here's just a thought. So if you do the full 900,000, run it through my budget, potentially, and maybe if I'm way off, just throw your pen at me, but potentially next year, then you wouldn't maybe have to raise anything because you've already got that covered.
Right.
Plus you've set your levy rate to hopefully get you through the legislation.
Whatever legislation
That's the
comes
part
along.
that's scary.
Yeah.
It's set before the state ties our other hand behind.
While you have an option.
Yes.
I would,
We should put it all in.
I would,
55% or 55 cents would be 781,
That would cover, I mean, you're gonna have to figure a couple 100,000 of that for
Say
the
if we-
IT
Say if
and
we
the,
go 6, if we went 6 on the towers, 600,000 on the towers. And you'd have 180, or, yeah,
I think what Ben is saying, well, that's, what'd you say, 780? So you take 109,000 is what I budgeted for IT salary benefits. So now you're down to 5 something.
basically, I think you gotta reserve about 200,000 of that for the IT and the increase in property
property
insurance.
insurance.
So how much
Oh,
did
yeah.
it
Well,
generate?
that'd be 190, yeah, that'd be 2, yeah. So
So-
781,
So
so,
now you're down to 580,
yeah.
580, 600 that you can use. Yeah, you said 600.
I mean, I'm all about, I don't want the taxes raised either, but I also don't want to.
And the IT ain't going nowhere and the insurance, but it ain't going nowhere. So that's gonna be there next year, which this here levy or the infrastructure.
Also,
we're bringing
the
in.
only other one that I mean, we have almost everything that we can in the supplemental levy already. I am planning to budget some of my salary and Lori's salary for our duties as election, commissioner of elections and elections deputy. I'm gonna put half of each of our salaries as an election expense, which then moves that to the supplemental levy too.
So there's gonna be another 100, yeah, so yeah. So now we're at 3.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
I don't see why,
Go ahead.
I don't see why we have to apologize for
don't.
raising taxes, because people can look at their own personal budgets and they haven't stayed the same for the last whatever many years. And if we don't do, to me, if we don't do the max this year, we can always drop it next year if we want to, or not raise it next year. But if the state's goal is to keep squeezing it down, if we don't put it up to this year,
And I mean,
we may not have the chance next year, but we can always say, well, next year we're gonna cut your taxes.
so if we could do, this is the first run. And this isn't locking us in. I mean, maybe we go to the Emergency Management Commission and present it as the full 900,000. We put it in as the full 900,000. And then we see how much after we've got all of the other things that need to be included. That's when we do a run, is when we have everything in and see how much it shuffles out to be, and then decide that's too much, we can dial it back some. Then we have a starting point. I mean, that's one way to do it.
And I think it's important to remind your taxpayers too, like this is for the July's payment of 24. And then there'll be another payment of the same in July of 25, and then
We're done.
you know, the final payment is gonna be considerably less.
It's gonna be under 100,000.
Don can lower his ask, you know, and get back to normal, but this is the hand we've been dealt. For lack of better words.
We have to balance the budget. Ben does not have a printing press.
Yeah, I don't think our county, when you look at it, we're not wasting a whole lot of money, if any at all. And if you look at Ben's comparison about the staffing in the offices, we're less than most counties. We're looking at all the things across the board, we're looking at most everybody else. So we were elected to make the county function and run and provide services, which means we too have to raise our cost of doing business. And you look at what we're just fixed with raises and COLA and everything. We can't exist if we don't do something. And this is a great opportunity for us to make a move that we can always pull back on if we have to.
I guess I would like to see it with the full amount put in, just to see where we're at.
Yeah.
I would
And
agree.
if there is room to pull it back, great. But,
Ben's overall assessment of that is a good one. I think it's wise.
Yeah, I mean, if we could see what 3 months from now will look like, I think that will help us, but we can always make adjustments next year too. I mean, this isn't etched in stone. Each year we can look at it and adjust accordingly as well too.
I'm just a little nervous about what's gonna take place down in Des Moines.
I'd be lying to you if I wasn't saying.
I mean, it could end up too, I mean, the emergency management commissions have been asking to have their own levy. It could be that something passes with that and they, whatever cap they put on that, won't be able to raise the 900,000 next year, and you might not be able to do it next
Yeah,
year.
there's a lot of variables.
There's other things, we don't know what that legislature might do in the meantime, so.
I just think it's prudent to take advantage of the opportunity we have. And because you could always cut back down the road if it's.
I'm just glad we have an avenue to at least explore.
I see Mark Vick's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And
Although I don't look at what percent, I just pay my taxes. I mean, it's reality.
You'd be surprised.
Well,
really, we don't have a choice on that one.
no, it's reality. I mean, the reality is it's gonna cost doing business, and that's what we put.
It's a new legislative year. I think they will have another opportunity to find some opportunity for unfunded mandate passed down to the local level.
Or the clawback.
Yeah, and at the end of the day,
I don't know.
I don't want to pay taxes any more than anyone else, but, I look at it as we did this project cheaper, more economical, and in a better fashion than pretty much any county did. And probably have as good, if not better of a system. I think be transparent, roll it out. Here's what it costs. Here's what we need to tax for. And I almost think it could erode some of it if, and I totally see where you're coming from, but I don't want to make it seem the public like we're on the defense, because we're not,
Well,
to
my understanding, it started because we got the gift of the ARPA money to do it. So that was a huge plus.
And I do think, I agree with the premise, but I'm just going, I
Yeah,
totally
no,
hear your
no.
point, but I'm just going, we still did this in the most taxpayer friendly way we could have done it. And we leveled with you on the front side, and we're gonna level with you on the back side. Here's what it costs.
And who can object that what we're trying to accomplish is for one of the most important things that the public deals with, emergencies.
My question always is what is it worth when your child is the one laying there needing emergency services? What's it
No
worth to
matter
you?
child
Or
grandparent.
whoever it is,
Doesn't
yeah,
matter.
your loved one,
Anybody.
your loved one is,
Anybody.
yep, when your loved one is the one in need, what's it worth? We still did it way cheaper. The service is being provided that I think overwhelmingly the majority of the public would want. And if they don't think they want it, if they find themselves unfortunate enough to be in a situation where they do need it, I bet they'd change their mind. And so,
You had that one few years ago where it was someone was in the ditch, it was down somewhere near Bluffton, on the way to Bluffton, and our plow person went there and they ended up off the road and so on. And your deputy had to keep driving up to the top of the hill to be able to communicate back what was going on away from the scene.
Actually walking
Oh,
to the top
walking.
of the hill, so we'd have to leave them for some time. It ended up being several hours because we could not get out. And dispatch on the phone with mom and dad, tell them, don't come out here. Everybody that's tried ended up,
Yeah.
you know, so yeah, those situations happen and they hit home when the actual.
It's your
when it's
fault,
there.
Reagan.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but is it okay to steal Ben on Wednesday and have him step over?
Yep, I'll plan to come over. And are you gonna do the full amount at least for the first
I
run?
think you've got
Yeah.
consensus on that.
I'll shoot you an email to like 12:30 on Wednesday.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you
I
very
put it on my calendar.
See you guys. Dan, are you gonna be around later?
Yes, what time?
Or? Well, it was, Iowa Department of Corrections is becoming representatives here tomorrow to meet with me, wanting to know what our needs are. So maybe you could give me a list of what you feel.
Yeah, I'm
priorities are.
going to be tied up from about 1:15 until about 3:15.
Okay, otherwise, I don't meet with them until 11:30 tomorrow, so we can touch base in the morning. too.
Okay, sounds great. Tomorrow morning would work
Yeah,
great.
why don't you give me a call when you have time?
Sounds good. Thanks. Mark.
Yeah.
The other one I need to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. The conservation, 50,000. Where do you want me to put that in the budget for the first run?
Oh, for that road,
We committed to it initially.
Initially, it was committed out of our infrastructure funding 4 years ago or whatever, and now that's this 900,000. Obviously, if you move the whole 900,000, you actually could probably afford it out of the general fund if you want to do that.
If we put in a 2-lane paved road with a cul-de-sac to nowhere from a gravel road with no ability to move forward with any significant large number program.
Are we talking
associated.
about
all we're just,
Lane Road?
all we're just
Okay.
saying is we're gonna give 50,000. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the county needs matching money. The matching money.
Them to get anything.
And this is for a future campground and tourist attraction. It's gonna make a lot of money for the
How
county.
much was there? Do you recall?
I do not know the detail. I know that the 50, the talk back at the time was that there was gonna, the reason we added this into the road system rather than leaving it as a driveway was so that secondary road crew could operate there. If the secondary road crew can't just do any county projects, they have to do projects that are on the roads or related to their administrative services. So the county road crew guys could come here and help haul away snow because the office is here, but they couldn't do that at the Smith Building because there's no secondary road office at the Smith Building. So similarly, if this was a driveway to the park, there would be, the secondary road crew could not be involved in any part of planning or construction or dirt moving or anything. So the board at the time decided to designate this as part of the road system. So this is actually a road in the county road system, a Class A road. And that opened up the ability then if we want road crew guys to run the excavator, or if we need to haul fill out or bring fill in, that the road crew guys could participate in that. And to get secure the grant, the board at the time pledged money. I think it was actually higher amount than that at the time, if I remember right. It
I
was
thought it was
130.
100,000.
And so now however the grant funding is played out, and maybe some of it is in-kind work that we've already done, I don't know. But now she needs 50,000 and this is going to happen, I think, is the way I understood it. Now is the time to do it, even though we've been putting it off for several years.
It has to happen to be able to access and use the money we could potentially get. So if we don't do it, we wasted a whole lot of time and effort and resources.
So I basically gave you the 3 options. You could do it out of now that we have, if this goes through with the Emergency Management Commission and you have money, you could pay for it out of the general fund, which is what you originally intended to do. You could have Michael pay for it out of his budget. It's a county road.
Do you see
And
that?
he's already
Do you see that?
got a tight budget,
That
yeah.
look over there on secondary roads?
Or you could ask if the conservation should pay for it out of theirs, capital improvements fund. But I don't know what they've already have that money designated to do. And so I did copy Barb, or I sent Barb a copy of the email I sent you and said, if you want to come and tell the board what your capital improvements fund is already planned, slated to do, that she could do that. Yes, that's up to you, how you want
That
it.
we could have on the agenda for next week.
Well, if you want me to do a first run, I need to know where to put it
We
in now.
should keep it in general right now.
I would-
What was initially talked about.
That's what the original intent was. I think it should be kept in the general.
Okay. But
What do you
I
think
hear
then?
two. Do I hear a third person to do it that way for now, or?
It's just the
It's-
first.
I'd put it for first run through, I'd put it in conservation. Figure out where she
Well, we haven't
where
heard
she
from
can
her,
come
so.
from. I know, but this is first run. You want to change it later, change it, but I certainly don't want to take it out of Michael's budget. We're already strapped to the wall
I
there.
would say that I would agree on that, but I
But you're-
want to make sure I presented all the options.
General, at this point, is strapped, just because we're talking about that extra levy doesn't mean that's going to evaporate quickly, I'm afraid.
But it's in the general right now, and you'd be changing it to put it in.
Is it in?
We-
It's not in anything right now.
It's nothing right now.
We had it in
The
the
intent-
general
The intent was to be in the general. and I
about
think
4
it should
years
stay
ago, and the project didn't materialize. The project didn't materialize. You used the infrastructure money for other projects then in the meantime, so it isn't anywhere.
I think she's already shifted, cutting that a dollar amount last year. She's already shifted things around. Something's got to give. I just think it should go in the general fund. The whole county would pay for it then rather than the rural fund if it came out of the roads. So
Well, I don't like it coming out of the rural fund at all.
No.
well, that's what he asked.
We in rural fund, rural people don't get nothing out of it.
What do you mean they don't?
It all goes to the towns.
In what way?
The money that's spent goes to Decorah,
Tourism.
Who funds the secondary? Who pays for secondary roads?
the rural.
They wouldn't use the resources there? Like any other county resident would though?
What are they gonna get out of it?
Tourism dollars, and that is shared with the whole.
They don't get much for tourism.
It's a tourism dollar.
We don't.
Goes right
Decorah gets all that.
It doesn't all go to
That's all
Decorah.
good.
It goes to hotel motel
No.
tax, hotel motel taxes, the
We need to have
majority
Stephanie
of the
Brown
money
back up.
spent, and we get nothing out of it.
The majority of people who work in Decorah probably don't live in Decorah, but they have businesses here because
Yeah.
of the tourism, and that's how they make a living. So they do get something out of it. They earn their wages by having jobs here
We
and
can also have
people spending money here.
economic development come again and show the numbers again.
Yeah, them numbers.
Still looking at all.
I'm just,
You're on the board.
But I think everyone says that, I don't think anyone wants to take it out of the road fund.
No, it ain't coming. out.
Okay, so that kind of alleviates that discussion. So
But is our road fund, the road guys, we can have the money in there to do the work though.
I don't
Is
know,
that-
I don't even know if they're requesting any work, other than it would be something that you
But
would
if we
probably plow.
donate the money, do we have to turn that into
Uh,
a county road?
I thought part of this was that the county was going to build the road.
I think we should
my
talk
under-
about it at the meeting on Monday. and get the
My
facts.
understanding, and Michael maybe doesn't know enough about it, is that they are planning to contract the actual road construction.
Okay.
But that there was some discussion that if there's excavator work or dirt that needs to be hauled out or moved in, then by making this a county road, that she could help have the county road guys help if that was needed. I don't know if that's needed. I don't know how much dirt moving there is. I don't know any of that. So
Can we leave it in the general for now for the first run? Because it can be changed later. We're not gonna settle on the first run. We very seldom do.
Right.
Leave it there. Put this on the agenda for Monday and have Barb come in so we can have an open discussion about it and get the facts in a row.
So we're not obligated to make it a county road if we just donate or if we supply. the
well, I think it
50,000.
already is.
Oh,
I think we have, isn't that right? We've added it to the road system. He maybe doesn't know. I'm pretty certain it's already been designated a road.
I feel for you, Michael.
Well, here's what I'll say. I'll just say, since I don't know much about it and Barb had mentioned talking to me. And they
There you
haven't
go.
coordinated that yet. I've got a reminder that I'm gonna contact her as soon as we're done with our meetings here. To coordinate all of this, so I will reach out to Barb.
Okay, and I'll see about getting her on next week's agenda to update us on that, because it was kind of,
For sure.
she mentioned it in her last budget update, but there wasn't much detail given other than there was gonna need to be $50,000, so. Okay,
So it'd be nice to know if our road department has to design the road and get it ready for bid. And
well, I think she has an engineering firm that has designed it. Now, whether she's hoping, and that's what I don't know, and that's what Michael will talk. If there's gonna be one of our guys on the site doing inspections while they're building it, or if they're paying a different engineering firm to do that, I don't know. Whether there's
Well, it sounds like.
snow plowing that will happen in the future that will now be done by the road guys, or if it'll, and I don't know all that. And I think it's not paved, I think it's gravel.
Right.
Yeah, it's gravel.
So, okay, I'll put it in the general fund and in infrastructure for the first round.
We'll ask for them to be here so we can get some.
Yeah.
Answers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If we're doing just, I just want to double check. I've entered all the, after last week's meeting, I did the health insurance numbers because we had those we didn't make a motion to formally approve them, but we know what we're looking at. So I was able to start getting those cranked through and I got those all entered. I did the union and elected official salary numbers, but I haven't started the non-union, non-elected. I just want to make sure that knowing that you might have this little extra room, do you still want to stick with 2.75?
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, that's what I want to know for sure. Then the other, and just to verify, for the first run, you didn't want to add the conservation employee, is that right?
No.
Okay. So I think this,
Yes, for me, but
No.
no majority.
No.
and then the only other thing I think I need to know for the first run is what numbers, do you want to go through any of these and pick numbers? Do you want me to put them in at the full request? Do you want me to, they're, to some extent, some of them are kind of given, so if you want to go through some of them, you can always raise or lower them after you see the first run, but at least give me some place to start on those. Do you want to start at the top and see if there's ones you want to go through, or? You want to just say EMS, do you want to, they requested the same as they have for years, and do you want to leave that the same?
I guess anybody's at the same, just leave them.
So the Ridgeway Fire, they want 30 from us, is that too well?
Yeah.
yep, I'd leave it.
I would too, because they're.
So any of them that are the same as last year, their request is the same as what we budgeted last year, just leave them at the amount. Makes those easy.
So
Or the library request, just put it at one, that's what they're requesting is 160.
That's the 18 cents contracted amount. They asked if you would consider the extra funding you've given in the past, which was 2,500 per library. So 5 libraries would make 12,500, which would put you at 173,136 if you wanted to fund that extra 2,500.
Why isn't that in the request column?
Because they acknowledged that they never really said that they asked if you would consider extra funding to consider it, but it wasn't in there.
So what would it go up to?
173,136 would be if you do 2,500 per library.
So they didn't change, they changed or not changed the old factoring system that went way back?
They did not
Nothing
change that.
changed.
they agreed on that.
Union kept it the same.
Well, like the 173, 136 would actually be less than what we gave them last year.
And that's because the rural valuation is down, and so the 18 cents generates a little less money.
Well, if we're leaving the rest of them at what we did last year for this first one, would it make sense just to do the 173, 136 then
Leave it there, put it in for first
for
run.
now?
The Upper Explorer Land is a little bit more, but that's something you've already agreed to at Upper Explorer Land meetings, so leave those
The 18,
with the request, yeah. Assuming you'll continue your commitment that you've already acted on their board meetings to accept.
The 3,800, that's up to the counties.
That was it was a new one. I think
See, they got 19,000 that they've been paying for 5 counties for the last umpteen years, which they.
And I think you actually paid it this year. It wasn't in your budget, but it got added halfway through the year, so.
Oh,
Item are we talking about right now?
the 3,800. That's
Or,
the dollars they've been paying for the counties.
got it, yep.
Last how many years? And I mean, their budgets are tight too, and they're trying, I mean, it's up to the counties, each county, it's up to each county whether they pay it or not.
So you're saying leave it in there for right now?
Well, I don't know, that's up to the county. Yeah, I mean, if we paid it once or did it go out or?
We've paid it once already, because I asked her and she said that, and she's like, it was good. Ben caught this when we sent you the bill, that this wasn't part of our budgeted request, but that my understanding was the Upper Explorer Land Board had agreed to it, and so it wasn't optional.
We agreed to it, but the counties had to, I mean, the counties had to agree to it too, I guess. It was kind of, yeah.
Should I leave it in there for now?
Yeah, I mean, they do.
Housing Trust Fund, we've been doing 5,000 a year for several years. They requested an increase to 10. Do you want me to?
Well, and that's the one I think, because they had a raise in what the state, or a drop in what the state provides them per thing, where they have a deductible they have to meet. That's why that was raised. I was going through some of the letters and request forms, and that's something that bounces back off of you. So it wasn't like they were just getting greedy, because they had been consistent at 5,000.
And actually, if you go back about 10 years when the program started, we were giving them 10,000 a year for the first several years, and then it got to the point where our residents weren't using it, and so we were actually building up, because they only use your money to match for your residents. They got built up too big of a balance, so that's why we cut it to 5. So maybe.
So
Give it back.
I think that number is fair, and I'll go back through, and if I'm wrong, I'll bring that forward.
Okay, and I can bring my whole folder of the request forms next week too, after we look at the first run. 3A, Northeast Iowa 3A, you haven't been giving them much. That actually, if you go back to that 21, 22, the 500, they never even requested the payment of that. So even though you budgeted it, they got 0. And then you've just given them 0 the last couple of years. Do you want to put anything in there or not?
If they never asked for it, I'd just 0 it.
And you said for Ridgeway to leave the 30,000 in?
That's what I said.
Look, is that a loan or that's just giving money?
That's money.
That's a grant.
And we sign.
And we'll co-sign their loan that when they borrow the money.
So, I mean, I guess I go back to this whole thing about, we talk about Ridgeway and Spillville and these smaller communities, and they can't raise taxes to cover that, or?
They're maxed out already.
They're maxed out. Same thing. And they're really struggling. The difference is this.
Legislation pinch?
No, it's just
No, what
cost of equipment.
I'm seeing is if we don't support these volunteer fire departments, and it comes back and they dissolve, and we've got to provide fire protection throughout this county, $30,000 by comparison is, that's chump
That ain't
change.
even gonna buy the tires for the fire truck.
So I mean, and I do know, that Ridgeway is continuing with their fundraising.
And they do, they've got a big group up there.
They
They
have-
cover a significant amount of our county for
And
calls.
they have the largest volunteer group of all.
Yeah.
Of the volunteer fire departments.
And I know
This
they're,
is just a one-time day, do it one, I mean, you know, you gotta
I know-
help these people
I
out.
know they're looking too, because Madison and Lincoln Townships, Madison is like half of their township, and Lincoln Township and the township north of Lincoln, whichever one that is, have all been contributing, having the max levy for fire and been paying them. But there's like some certain smaller so many sections of Burr Oak Township that's in their fire district, and they've been levying the lowest in the county, like 30 cents per thousand, whereas everyone else is at 76 cents per thousand. And haven't been paying their fair share. And so I know that they've already planned to go, and they're looking to make
Get
sure that
their-
everyone's,
Paying their fair.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're already planning to go and
Mhm.
ask them for more money too, because
Yeah, they're trying to avoid having to go to a loan with
I
the
mean, they want to
fundraising.
get by with, yeah, as little much as it, cause they can't afford, you know.
so do you want to put the 30?
I would leave it at 30.
I say 30, I say leave it 30.
Riverview Center.
I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm not saying we shouldn't give it to them, I just want a little clarification on that, where
And maybe when the first round comes back,
Mhm.
we might be doing some
because
pencils.
how much did we give the Protivan?
That was
Towards the fire
30,000.
30,000. Protivan does also come in and respond,
Yeah,
you
no,
know, in our lower townships.
Riverview Center, they're asking for 1,000 increase. You heard from them today.
I'd like to leave that at
I
the
would.
75 for the work they
I
do.
can't believe she has to do everything. Well, counseling.
That's gonna be tough for 6 counties.
And we're only starting to see the,
Just me.
well, the scratching. I asked her about what's happening with the border crossings and how they're beginning to impact, because I mean, she said she's got 2 cases that relate to that.
And it's legitimate need. It's,
Yeah.
And we need those workers
Well,
desperately.
they can't, those are illegal workers. They aren't workers.
We'd like to get them legal and have them be legal workers.
We
That's
have,
a
we have
whole
an
other
immigration.
discussion.
We have an immigration.
That's a whole
other meeting.
Whether they're here legally or not, we don't want any sexual assault issues. So let's go on to, that's just the part we're dealing with. RSVP is asking for a pretty big increase. She talked about hiring a additional part-time person is what she was gonna do with that money.
I would say, could we do 12 there? Because then we'd be consistent with our last increases over the last several years.
Sure. Do 12 or?
Yeah, I would.
I'm okay.
Okay.
The rest were let's see, Upper Explorer Lands, we go down to Watershed was the same. So the fair, we're at 18 for the current year and they're asking 25. They didn't say how to split it, so I just put it in as an even split,
Yeah.
but you could designate it the way you want, I guess.
They impact a lot of our,
Young people.
impact a lot of our citizens.
but they also have the ability to raise rates. and
Yeah, but they
generate-
can't run
generate-
people out too. You gotta,
Generate revenue.
There's a point,
yeah, there's a point where you gotta run a business,
Because
you
it's-
gotta know
that is a big
what
family
people can't
event.
afford and what they can't. I mean,
When you've got a,
No.
it's easy to sit here and just raise everything on everything. You just can't keep doing that all the time. You got nobody gonna come then.
So, they're raising what we're giving them.
Well, yeah, but this here, everybody's paying it.
When you look at the comps from the other counties,
Yeah, we're
know.
way behind what.
You did,
I'm
last
fine,
year,
I'm fine leaving it at what
you
we
did a
asked.
3,000 increase. They were at 15,000, then you went to 18 last year. Do you want to do
20, 21? Yeah,
So
I do
10 and
20,
10.
do 10 and 10.
10.
Okay. And I think then the only other one I have here that I don't have a number in is development and tourism. The rest of them are all the same, except the libraries, I put in the 173, 136.
They've got a new position down there with Maddie Putnam. And they're really made an effort to concentrate on the southern part of our county in the last year.
$15,000 increase.
You're on that board, Dan.
I know I'm on that board that does.
I know, just-
Lobbying for it. They have done a better job. And Steve can probably acknowledge that too by sitting on the Stouffville Council,
Mhm.
but I don't know where it should be.
I'd be at the 85, I guess
Yeah, Maddie has been, she's been a real plus, I agree. But I don't, how much is being funded, how much of their funds come from elsewhere?
I don't know their full budget. You give them money, they get some money from the hotel motel tax through the city of Decorah for the tourism part of it. The development part, I don't think they get, I mean, they sell those memberships to the businesses, but that's their only major other income for development. And I mean, it used to be development was one office and tourism was a separate office, and they combined them for some efficiency purposes. Plus, then you only had the one. I mean, at the time you had a full-time development person and a part-time tourism person. So they combined them. The idea was that why don't we make Stephanie do it all while it was maybe too much. So now they're trying to add a part-time person back in. So.
And they had Laura
Priest for a while, yeah.
grant writer where she left and that's when Maddie kind of took over that position. But on a full-time position.
We do give them, I mean, I'll only mention it, but I'm saying this should affect your decision, but we give them a little bit of in-kind assistance too in the fact that we process their payroll. So
yeah, I think
we bill them for all the actual costs, but it takes Lynn time and it takes, we've got them carrying their employees on our work comp and we don't bill them anything because trying to figure out how many employees, I mean, that's not enough it's negligible, but it's in-kind assistance.
We provide them with it on our health insurance policy. Yes.
At their cost, so they reimburse us for it, but they're included then for any expenses to the cost of our pool.
I think this
95 here.
I think the city gives them in kind on their facility, on their space. I don't think they give them any, if I recall, they don't get any funding from the city.
The city took away the funding last year, but they backfilled it from the hotel.
the city ain't giving them any, but
out of their general budget, but they're using.
They received funding just on a different route. It's basically like you gotta put it.
I would say the 85 is, we're doing plenty in kind too.
Do you have any ideas how much funding they do receive in that respect in their budget?
From that hotel.
From the hotel.
I don't want to be quoted on this one. I believe it was around 45,000.
What's our agenda looking like for next Monday?
I don't think there's a lot. I think it's kind of like this one. We're done with our funding requests, but we got that public hearing on the flood thing and a couple other.
Well, I just think there's some misinformation or miscommunication or misunderstanding around the table on what they do for us as a county. Could we leave this at 100 with a question mark behind it for first run, or 95? And then have them come in again to clarify some of these questions?
Do it 90, I would go 90.
And have her come in if you want then?
90, is that what you want?
Yeah, do it 90.
And have her come.
If you want.
We don't.
Well,
I'd like to have her come in again because I think there's some misinformation in all of our heads about what we benefit from and what we actually get. And I think we need to hear it again. If she's free, I think it doesn't hurt to have
where we are.
communication.
I know, but we only got 60,000 for sure of increased in revenue from our tax base. Now let's see what we can, how far will it stretch along with.
So the funding requests, we went through those. Do you want me to get Stephanie on the agenda? Or you want to wait to see how the first run looks? I think I'm sure she'd be happy to come, although she is on maternity leave right now, so she's not in the office regularly, but I'm sure she would come.
Or Mark Jensen.
Yeah, we asked her to. I just, if you don't really need her to, maybe we give her.
Yeah.
I think we do need her to, because I think there's some misinformation being said, and I'd like to get answers on it and factually.
That's I mean,
It doesn't hurt to have more information.
I don't know what the misinformation is.
We don't, that Decorah takes it all. I don't think that's right.
According to one last year.
They didn't
We
even
don't
fund
pay
them.
all.
They didn't even fund them nothing. We funded them 85,000.
So
and they
again, I
didn't
think
get
we're
nothing.
speaking to what we don't really know for sure. And it'd be nice for all of us and the community to have the facts. There's nothing wrong with
Bring her in.
education and
Bring her
communication.
in.
Peter, or if Mark Jensen wants to come in, that would be great.
Either Stephanie or Mark or both.
I would agree. I think clarify a few things.
All right, so we got through that list.
Yep, I think that's what I got what I needed to know there. So I think, as far as I know, that's all the information I need then to do the first run, which I will intend to have for next week then.
I know there was some talk of the rural waste, but that don't really matter. That comes out of rural
Yes,
supplement. We're on supplements,
Not
so.
supplement, we're just rural, but that's the
Rural,
rural fund.
whatever. Yeah, rural.
Yeah,
fund.
I still think we ought to, I think we need to eliminate, that's my opinion. I think it needs we got other places that we can, we're scratching elsewhere. And we need it, that rural waste expenditure of what it is when we're
Maybe
providing
it-
services for that limited
What if
number
we
of
started
people.
charging per bag?
Yeah, you
Well, if we
can't-
did
you
some
can't-
type of
You
fee.
can't charge enough to even.
No, you can't, we've got, by the time we put an employee out there for the number of bags that are gonna come in, plus we're paying even for the electric heater and the telephone poles
Yeah.
sitting there all year long, and the rest of that on all of the locations, plus we got a $45,000 hauling contract with Christopher on the dumpsters. And we're
Yeah.
looking at expenditure of 100 upward, above
150, 60.
50 plus.
150,000, about just very roughly. I think a little more than half is the tipping fees and a little less than half is the employee and all that.
Well,
But
then we got the.
you got all
charges,
the
Other
you got the time that the
county.
recycling.
Yeah, I mean, wear and tear on their truck and doing it.
I mean, part of it is an efficiency thing, is when they're taking a recycling dumpster out, they can pick up a garbage dumpster and come in type thing, but they still make more trips and more wear and tear, and they wouldn't have to go out to the
And
landfill.
they're taking on that additional work, which means they're gonna have more appliances to decommission and the rest of that stuff. So we're not gaining.
Was it put in place in the first place to keep the ditches cleaner? Is that, was
Yeah.
that the gist?
That was the gist behind it, is that the idea was that if we didn't provide that service, people would throw their garbage in the ditch.
I think we increased the fine for dumping. Illegal
And
dumping.
and enforce it.
So that was where it came up. For a while, it was unmonitored.
Oh, that was.
Then it was just parked dumpsters there 7 days a week.
Tigers, animals.
Yeah, they had, it got to be, paint cans and
I'm
dead
just
animals.
afraid that if we
pigs.
take it away, we're
Yeah.
gonna see really dirty ditches again because
We only got
people think
500
they're
people
above
we're
the law.
servicing. That are
But the
basically.
people that are, I pay for my own
Yeah.
waste pickup and I'm paying for
Do you
these
think they'll
people
pay
too.
for it or do you think they'll just dump it or burn
But I'm
it?
paying for mine and I gotta pay for, everybody else to dump theirs too. Everybody said.
Everybody in the city, everybody in every town pays a garbage fee. Everybody. Ben, how do you pay yours? You
I
got tip.
go out
you
to the
got-
landfill and pay the
Landfill.
tipping fee.
He's a good citizen.
Yeah, well,
You would hope that if you eliminate this program, that the people would then either burn it or take it to the landfill, not dump it in a ditch.
if they don't, we gotta address it then.
Either that or we
It's a
put
lot of
out
money.
there, it's gonna be,
Increase
it's
the
gonna
fines.
cost
like
you
Mark was
$200 a year to use it, or we're getting rid of it. If we got 300-400 people, that's.
If that's what it is.
Then how do you build that out?
Yeah, Then you gotta,
They charge every rural resident $200.
but no, it-
They would subscribe to it. They could,
You could, I think the administration of a paid, skin in the game program would be either you buy some kind of tags, and they could even sell them in the treasurer's office or my office or the landfill office, where you could buy 20 tags for $20, and then they have to put it around the bag. That would be one way. The other would be, like you say, an annual fee, and maybe you print a card or a permit that says, I
Yeah.
paid my annual fee for 2024, so now I can dump here. And if you show up without a card, you don't get to dump.
But if for the 500 people out of 20,000 people that we may be servicing and
yeah.
the
And
rest
then
of that,
them
I
500,
can't see it.
part of them, I mean, they're probably using it twice, so we might be down to 300.
I think they did
actual
try to do a survey, and it was between
Yeah.
300 or 400 people.
Actual
Actually-
users.
So that's 500 at 300, that's $500.
They can go to Hawkeye or
Yeah, I mean, you can get it.
any one of them
Yeah.
for less. So I mean,
Yeah.
well, we can't meet every need like that. That isn't a need. That is now,
That's a
that's a
want.
service and a want.
Yeah.
But nobody else, I mean, if Ben can take his to the landfill, then anybody else can.
They're separating between needs and wants.
it,
The needs is what,
you could also go to just once a month.
no, that ain't once.
I'm not gonna let
Summertime,
my garbage set around.
no, summertime he goes once a month. You know, I think you're right up once a
And
week.
you might think that, but then you just have to have, 5 dumpsters there.
There,
4
yeah, I
dumpsters
mean, it
there,
ain't gonna
once
solve
a month
nothing.
and
But one
one
person
for
monitoring rather than.
That's
one
true.
Person every time. It keeps the larger stuff out of the, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Couches and.
Well, I'll leave the rural waste collection in the budget for the first run, but I think it's something you should continue to look
Yeah.
at.
Because if we took that out, then you could lower oh no, that comes out of the rural.
That'd be out of the
Anyway.
rural, but rural has the same restriction
It's general.
as general under the new law. But you're sitting in a healthier position. You have more carryover last year,
yeah.
so it isn't quite as bad. But the fact that the rural value went down means that you have no new money. You actually have less money that you'll be raising this year.
So the 1.95 comes off the rural, the 892, 423, 305. That 1.9 comes off there.
Yes.
Where would we do if we get rid of this, what would be the mechanism or process to raise the fines for dumping?
I'm guessing there's probably ordinance in place. It's just that there then requires someone to investigate a dumping site to find evidence. And so you'd probably be putting the burden on the sheriff department to.
Well, recycling does it. They find garbage at recycling and they track them down on sales receipts and find who it is.
Either that or
So,
just make it part of the county engineer's job.
That's a
Yeah. He ain't even listening.
but if we raise, if
didn't
we
want
did a
to.
significant raise in that dumping fine, maybe that would be something that would.
I mean, we had an issue up at Kendallville. That's been
Yeah.
5-6 years ago, wasn't it? 4 or
No,
5
we
years?
just had one last.
Anyway, there was one where there were people dumping up there, and so they put up some
Yeah.
cameras and they.
Well, yeah, then last year a guy was complaining because somebody wasn't sitting there at 6:30 instead of 7 because he went to work. Yeah, they did the cameras.
They did
before
some
that.
before that, they did some cameras and they did somebody, I don't know if it was who, it was deputies or landfill employees, but somebody did some digging through it and found names and they issued citations and it stopped the
Yeah.
stopped the issue.
I'm
But
saying
it's, somebody has to do
get rid
that.
of it, we need to be ready to have that conversation, that maybe we increase the dumping fines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I think that a vast majority of the people who utilize it aren't gonna just dump in the ditch. I mean, like, my parents are one of the ones that utilize it, so they aren't gonna just go dump in the
Right.
ditch. They're gonna
You'll go get it.
Yeah, then I'll probably have to go haul it.
Hey.
Yeah. But yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's see if I hear an aye from Steve when he comes out of there. And just remember, just for a reminder on don't shut that off yet. When you do the 2.75, that's an adjustment to the whole matrix. But some people will get more than that.
You'll
If
get
they're-
1.17
Yeah.
maybe or more.
Well,
They
that's
could get
the average.
2.3. Oh, okay.
It's it's like a 2.25 or 2.5% when they hit the year. That averages
Averages
out to be
okay.
1%. So someone like Michael, who's at the beginning of the thing, gets one each year for the first couple of years, so. So he would get the 2.75 plus the so he's gonna get like a 5% raise. Because he's gonna hit the step, but actually, most people won't hit the step this year because they just implemented it last year, where you put everybody at the bottom of the step.
Steve?
Did you say aye? Okay,
You didn't hear me through the door.
I did it, but I'll mark it as unanimous.
You didn't hear me either, Mike. Said when we have to patrol this to see if people are putting trash in the road ditches, we can just put that on.
Oh.
We were just reading away and didn't.
Yeah, I'm trying to
And you missed the whole thing?
keep eyes focused on what do they gotta do, but
Oh, that's okay.
that's the case. I'll have Jan or Beth figure out something.
Are you gonna meet with Steve and Mark here?
That's the idea.
Okay, so Shirley, are you gonna,
I'm gonna evacuate.
okay, that's what I was gonna ask, because I wanted to make sure you did it up with three. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna sign off the meeting then. Thank you, everyone.